Great, so I'll call the regular meeting of Township Council for Monday, October 6th to order. And of course, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and in particular, acknowledge our valued relationships with the Katzie, Kwantlen, Matsqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. Going to move the agenda amended to remove delegation C2, which has been withdrawn, add delegation C6, which has been requested regarding the same item under C1, and to defer items E3, E6, and E7 to October 20th. So I will move that as amended, seconded by Councillor Rint. Seeing no discussion, call the question on the amended agenda. That carries unanimously. Move on to adopting the meeting minutes, the regular council meeting of September 15th. Moved by Councillor Pratt, seconded by Councillor Rint. Question on the minutes from September 15th. That carries unanimously. Move on to our first delegation, Nicole Marples, regarding the Historic Berry Farm Coalition. Please come forward. And thanks you for coming here today. Please go ahead.
Okay, it's working. Good afternoon, Mayor Woodward and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to present to this delegation today. I'm Nicole Marples, Executive Director for Langley Environmental Partner Society, and I'm here representing a coalition of organizations to present to you a draft concept for the historic Berry Community Farm. This concept has been presented to the Township of Langley Agricultural Advisory Committee in February of this year, and it received approval in principle from that committee. And we're here today to present the concept to Mayor and Council in hopes of receiving approval to advance the development of this exciting community-driven project. So the land the project is concerning is located at 21025, 21151, and 21193 Old Yale Road, which is directly across the Fraser Highway from the Derrick Doubleday Arboretum. The land was historically owned and farmed by the J.W. Berry family. It's within the Agricultural Land Reserve on the urban-rural edge. It was purchased by the Township of Langley in 2018. It has 3 properties totaling approximately 55 acres with numerous outbuildings. There's currently an on-site caretaker and a hay lease to manage the pasture lands. We see underutilized agricultural capacity. It's very centrally located. It has connections to the Arbor Ribbon. The property was included in a request for proposals that was issued by the township in 2019, but at that time no submissions were selected. And since then, a coalition of organizations has been meeting to try to advance the concept. So the Historic Berry Community Farm Coalition, I'm here as LEPS, but as a representative of the coalition, which includes LEPS, Encompass Support Services Society, the Foodlands Cooperative of BC, and Langley Meals on Wheels. And we hope to add the Township of Langley and many other organizations to this coalition. So building on the past partnerships, Encompass, LEPS, and Foodlands with Langley Meals on Wheels are proposing the development of a community farm, utilizing the land and buildings of the former J.W. Berry-owned Belmont Farm. The concept is a community legacy celebrating the rich heritage of agriculture in Langley, providing educational and experiential opportunities for citizens, promoting local agriculture, supporting new farmers, addressing food insecurity, and building a sustainable food system for Langley. We see it as cultivating an engaging community space where residents of all ages can come together to build relationships around food, community gatherings, and events. Caring for the land and encouraging farming in an environmentally sustainable and responsible way, focusing on small-scale regenerative methods that encourage biodiversity, soil building, pollinator protection, and cultural heritage, and creating opportunities for the community to have equal access to fresh produce and the knowledge of how to produce it themselves. So we envision taking a phased approach, starting with smaller, low-budget projects, building community support and growing as the funds and advancements allow. We see the opportunities for agriculture education, engaging classrooms and community in food systems learning and action. In incubator plots that support new entrant farmers, showcase small-scale agribusinesses and produce local food. Indigenous cultural gardens, space for cultivating traditional medicines and food crops. The potential for a permanent sheltered location for a community farmers market. Exploring opportunities to dedicate space for agricultural exhibitions and events. And a food security hub where food skills training and access to healthy, locally produced foods. There are a number of strategic connections that the project would fulfill in the Township of Langley's agricultural viability strategy, the official community plan, the heritage strategy, the sustainability charter, and the climate action strategy. I'm not going to go through those in detail, but a copy of those connections has been provided for your reference. As mentioned, this is just a conceptual idea at this point, and we hope to obtain township buy-in and approval to advance the project. If approved, we intend to seek input and engagement from a wide variety of stakeholders to ensure truly collaborative community effort. As a coalition of charitable nonprofit organizations, a diversity of funding opportunities have been identified. As mentioned, we envision a phased approach where projects advance and develop based on availability of project funds. So next steps. What we're hoping to achieve through this presentation is an endorsement of the project in principle with approval to proceed with the development of the concept. Potentially, if approved, the appointment of a staff contact who could become a participant in the development of the project, and potentially a letter of support that would allow us to begin to fundraise for a feasibility study and community consultation process. I greatly appreciate your time and attention. I'll end with the note that I am providing my contact information here. I am open and available to answer any questions, but with the caveat that this proposal is being presented not by me alone, but on behalf of the Historic Barrie Community Farm Coalition, which includes Lauren Roberts from Encompass Support Services Society, Heather Pritchard from the Foodlands Cooperative of BC, Shannon Waken of Langley Meals on Wheels, and many other community members who have supported this vision. Thanks for your time. I'll answer questions.
Still getting used to the new system. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions from council, and then I might have a few if they're not answered. Councillor Pratt.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation today. I was wondering if you could sort of explain a little bit more about specifically the incubator plots, because that's obviously one of the more exciting parts for me.
Okay, sure.
And it's not quite the same as a community garden, and I think that would be important for folks to sort of know what that would be.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, for new entrant farmers, access to land is one of the biggest pieces. Land is very, very expensive here in the Lower Mainland, and there is interest from young people or new farmers in getting into farming, but that access is typically very difficult. So through organizations like the Young Agrarians, Kwantlen Polytechnic University's agriculture program, even University of British Columbia's food systems program, there are people that are going through these programs that are looking for those opportunities when they get out. Maybe not to buy an entire farm, it's very difficult, but at least to be able to have the space to test and develop their markets. And so looking at a diversity of sizes, everything from a few hundred square feet to half an acre or more, that we could provide these opportunities. And so again, it's one of those things where we couldn't approach the young agrarian saying, hey, is this something you're interested in, until we know that this is something that's actually could be supported and moved forward. So I think there's lots of opportunities there, and lots of opportunities to support young farmers and new entrant farmers in this by using this land in that way. And I mean, it's 55 acres, so this could be one component of something larger. Right. I certainly don't see 50 acres of young entrant farmers, but maybe if
right.
if the interest was there.
Right, thank you. And then I know it's run by the Langley Sustainable Ag Foundation across the street, but the Learning Farm.
Yes. Yeah.
The difference between that and this concept would be.
Yeah, I think right now it is separate. The Learning Farm is primarily tended by students from Langley Secondary School. They're walking there on a regular basis. This is just that much farther away. I see the opportunities as it develops that it could become more of a hub for other schools to come in for field trips, that type of thing, but I do see it as being somewhat separate from the learning farm itself.
Great, appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, that leads in nicely to where I want to go, Nicole. It's schools. Have you started to talk to the school board about having involvement, and I would say starting right at the elementary level? Have you engaged them yet?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, LEPs ourselves do agriculture education for classrooms, and we have engaged with the school district, and there is that support there. I gave you a list of people that we're looking at as far as being able to collaborate further, but I have been hesitant to try to really get into it and put my feet wet and approach people without knowing if this is something that's actually supported at the council level.
And also about Chamber of Commerce or that, have you talked to them about possibly having small agribusinesses interacting, like maybe selling or growing or whatever, and make it a showcase for these small
Absolutely.
businesses?
I mean, I think that the potential is there, absolutely. There's numerous outbuildings, there's lots of opportunities for repurposing things on site, and the chamber is on our list of people to connect with.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you for coming today and appreciate this information. Just one question I have with regards to under your strategic connections, the heritage strategy.
Okay, yeah.
It came up at our Heritage Advisory Committee meeting this past week about the fact that there's a couple of historical residences
Okay, yes.
on
Yeah.
that property, and I'm curious how that will play in, if you envision them staying or what they would look like in this idea.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't see any, I mean, I think that there's a caretaker there right now, and it's important to have people that are there on site. And so I don't see any, or foresee, at least in the immediate future, any need for those buildings. And so, you know, there are opportunities with budget to look at some kind of renovations and repurposing of the barn and outbuildings for use, but the actual residences that are there. I mean, way down the line in the future, if there was opportunities, it's always nice, because farming is not a 9-to-5 job, that the people that are farming that land have the access to live on that land. And if there were opportunities in the future to explore that, I think that would be an interesting concept. But right now, I see the potential for the people that are living there to continue to live there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi there. Thank you for coming. I love the ambitious plans, and I know that you've been working so hard in our community as the LEPS, front person. So I see that there's a lot of community partners. Would there be one that would sort of be like orchestrating this, or a governing body that would, because sometimes when you have so many different partners and people with all kinds of different ideas, that it doesn't always work so well. So is there a vision of sort of a type of governing body that would be?
Yeah, so that's a real role that the Foodland Cooperative of BC play. That is what they do, is help to create, sorry, I have it here, I'm gonna bring it up. They help to create the basis for collaboration around community farm management. And so they have worked with people across BC, everything from Vancouver Island, Sunshine Coast, Gulf Island, Central North Okanagan, Caribou, Shuswap, Kootenays, to establish these community farms. And their real strength is in developing that cooperative, collaborative approach to ensuring all the voices are on the table and creating a management plan for, is that certain representatives from an organization? Is it a separate governing body that gets created? And I think that is that would kind of be the natural next step here, would be to be running some of this community input and being able to develop that, what would this actually look like on the ground for Langley?
Okay, and then you mentioned that agricultural event space. What kind of agricultural events would you sort of think? Because I know there's different visions for that that property.
Yes.
And just wondering what your ideas were.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, I'm not coming in here with any predisposed notions. We have ideas. We've talked to people in the community that have ideas. We've kind of put together what we see the potential for working. That could look like, you know, the agricultural exhibitions, like something like Aldergrove Fair, where they do, you know, farm exhibition type things. It could be small workshops for farmers being able to come onto the land and learn about certain concepts or things that they could take back to their own properties. You know, I don't see it being an agriplex per se, you know, like we're putting buildings on the land for that purpose, but how could we use what was there to meet the needs of those who would like to use it for that role?
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you, Nicole, for coming. First, I have a housekeeping question. Do we have another delegation regarding Berry Farm later on in the agenda? Okay, I just want to double check. I don't want to ask the same question first, so I'll ask a similar. First of all, good to see you. It's been a number of years. I wanted to ask you, going back your presentation, did you ever meet with the Berries and talk to you about when we were thinking about taking over and purchasing accordingly?
I don't think we're talking about purchasing. I think we'd be looking at working with the township to utilize that land. What does that look like? I think that's a conversation that would need to be had as far as, is this something that's leased or is it a partnership? Have we spoken to the Berry Farm family? No, not at this point.
How about yourself over the years? I'm not sure how long you've been with LEPS, but
Way too long. Yes.
whether you met with the Berry family
I have not.
when they're farming. Okay, I just wanted to double, and also it's an ambitious program you've got here. A lot of people involved. It's exciting. And I'm just trying to think, you're putting agriculture back in Langley's roots. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And brilliant idea. I love it. Couple of questions. How much of the actual land there would be in active production with some of the programs that you're
For sure. I
looking
mean,
at?
there are outbuildings, so that 55 acres roughly in total. Some of that is, there is a water course that runs through, so there's opportunities for doing more sort of water course management that could showcase aquatic habitat restoration and that type of thing for local farms. I think what we've been talking about is start small. I mean, having people utilize that land for growing would be fairly easy first step, and then look at developing projects as it comes along. So I don't see this as a year or a 5-year. I see this as a 20-plus year project.
Wow, okay. Well, council can, of course, refer delegations to staff for a report. I see you've got a list of things that you're asking
Hoping
us
for,
for,
yes,
like approval in principle and appointing a staff contact and a letter of support. All we could do today is basically refer it to staff to come back with a report on that. But I'd be like 110% in favor of that.
Thanks, Councillor.
Thanks.
Councilor Ray?
Just a couple of questions, like you speak of farming, like what I hear is kind of more of like raised garden beds, not actual farming per se, because I know the challenges of actual farming in the township.
Absolutely.
And then having something like this in the heart of Langley, let's say, with the challenges of people complaining about dirt on the road or noise, or if you get into animals, chickens, cows, you name it, noise, smell, vegetables rotting, right? There's a lot of issues. How would you address that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was where both a management plan and strong management, the governance model would be there. I don't see them as raised beds so much as being able to actually use, planting in the ground. So looking at, soil amendments or doing some soil tests to see what's possible where on the site would be a good first step. Access to water, what does that look like? That's all questions right now that, like I say, we have a concept. the people that we have spoken to in the community have supported that, saying this is great. I think that, you know, we should try to move forward with this. So that's what we're doing. And then I think there's a lot of questions that would be answered as it goes along.
Yeah, like the perfect example, access to water. City water gets quite expensive, and it actually harms the plants as
Yeah.
well. So,
There's-
and you can't pump from the streams because of
No,
the fish.
for sure. And that's the thing, looking at innovative, like rainwater harvesting, there's lots of buildings there that we could be putting, you know, cisterns to be able to harvest the water that comes off the roofs to be used. And like, how can we look at this in a way that's looking at agricultural innovation, not necessarily on the tech level, but yeah, the things that people could learn and be able to take onto their properties to like foster more community resilience as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Again, I hadn't really heard much about the proposal until I saw the slides and the delegation request, so bear with me a little bit. How much space is, the burial farm is quite large, how much space do you think the concept that you're pursuing would require?
Well, I'm gonna say, you know, that's really questions that need to be answered, but I mean, I think if taking, you know, even 5 acres for incubator farms would be a start, you know, and then as, you know, let's try to do that, let's see how that works. And then we can add projects as both funding availability and community connections are made.
So if it's 5 acres, and even let's double that, it's 10 acres, the berry farm, I think, is close to 70 acres.
Absolutely.
Does this concept have to be pursued at the berry farm?
The one thing is it's a really great location. It's so central. It's Fraser Highway. It's very, very close to, more to the urban core, if you will, and which I think is a real benefit. If it's, you know, tucked away on a farm property that's away from people, it's going to be a little bit different than having something that's so central that people could walk to, bike to, bus to, that people are driving by, seeing what's going on, and I think that would foster a lot more community engagement than something that's tucked away, sight unseen.
So that's the criteria that's leading you to look at the berry farm?
Absolutely.
Prominence to transit, accessibility from major roads, visibility, proximity to maybe the center of Langley, more urban style residents that maybe would be exposed to some of these things or learn about these things. Maybe proximity to major schools, that would be one thing, like the high school is very close to this
absolutely.
location.
Yeah. But also the heritage significance of the property itself, right? It's sort of looking at that agricultural heritage of Langley and how can we really uphold that and bring that into the future as well.
And so the criteria that I just want to make a note of, though, were access to transit, adjacency to urban areas, visibility, a certain size, you know, not sort of Zero Avenue to make a drive,
Sure.
significant example. So I think that's important. And then the two sides of it, of course, are do you focus this on a heritage location, or, you know, to bring it into the future, as you said, or do you maybe leave heritage the way it is? So there's two sides to that. But I appreciate the criteria that you've outlined that led you to
And
look
sorry,
at the
I
berry
will
farm.
mention as well, like on the arbor ribbon, the idea of the trail system that connects, there is an underpass, I guess, that goes under Fraser Highway that connects it to the Doubleday Arboretum and to the Dixon property as well, which is another heritage agricultural park land that's owned by the township. And so all of those things are also connected, which I just think fits really nicely.
And so if there were maybe some other locations that fit that criteria, that might be something you're open to as well.
Possibly.
That's great. The other thing I just had is the contemplation to add this to, you know, the inventory of what's occurring at the Arboretum, or would the Arboretum activities potentially be relocated as part of this proposal?
No, I see it right now, at this point, I would see it as over and above.
Over and above, okay. Well, that's great. Thank you very much for coming here today, and I very much appreciate that, and it's great to see this advancing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no, we're moving on, Councilor Richter. So move on to delegation item C3, Amandeep Saran, if you could please come forward. Great, thank you very much for coming here today. Please introduce yourself to Mayor and Council, and then go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Amin Sonnen, and this is my husband, Kazi Mamoun, and we live at 21580 48th Avenue, right at the Murrayville Five Corners intersection. We're here tonight as residents, taxpayers, and parents of a 2-year-old child who walks daily to daycare that's just a block away. Every single day from our porch, we witness near misses, honking, hard braking, and driver frustration at this intersection. This is not a typical 4-way crossing. It is a 5-corner intersection with 2 uphill approaches and a city water pump house that creates a serious blind spot for both drivers and pedestrians. Because of these factors, visibility is dangerously limited. Vehicles often fail to yield or stop properly, and there are no clear warning signs, reduced speed limits, or physical measures to calm traffic. With one daycare only a block away and 2 schools within minutes, this area is a child safety zone that currently receives no protection. Every morning when I walk my 2-year-old son to daycare, I witness speeding cars, confusion, and frustration among drivers trying to navigate this irregular intersection. The sound of squealing tires, honking, and yelling has become part of our daily routine, all because this intersection was not designed or regulated for the volume and complexity of current traffic. This is a serious public safety hazard, and we're here to urge immediate action before a preventable tragedy occurs. The city has a duty of care under the Community Charter and Motor Vehicle Act to ensure that hazards are mitigated, especially near schools and daycares. So we are therefore formally requesting that the City of Langley take the following immediate actions. Number 1, install traffic calming measures such as speed bumps or raised crosswalks at or near the Murrayville Five Corners intersection. Number 2, reduce the speed limit to 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, designating it as a school and daycare safety zone. Number 4, add clear signage warning drivers of the blind spot caused by the water pump house. And number 4, approve a secondary drop-off access on the front opposite side of our property at 21580 48th Avenue, where we already have a driving pad. This would allow us to safely exit our property without adding congestion to the main intersection. Currently, our driveway feeds directly into one of the corners, worsening congestion and creating an additional hazard. Allowing a safer exit point on the opposite side would benefit not only our household, but also the overall flow of vehicles and pedestrians at this intersection. This is not a matter of convenience. It's about preventing an accident involving a child or pedestrian. With 3 educational facilities in walking distance and growing community traffic, this area deserves immediate attention, not a future investigation after harm is done. I respectfully request that Council direct the City Engineering Department to conduct a site inspection within the month and begin implementing speed reduction and safety infrastructure immediately. Murrayville Five Corners must not remain as an overlooked danger point. It should be a model for proactive community safety. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to keeping our neighborhood and our children safe.
All right, thank you for your delegation. I don't have any speakers from council, so appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and I'd be fully supportive of referring your delegation to a report when we get to that stage.
So will someone email us about next steps?
Yes, the staff members can be in touch, or someone from my office can get in touch with you, depending on what council determines to do.
Okay, do you know when the timeline would be?
Oh, we don't, so, but the council will adjudicate and the request that you've made here today.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And good shout out to Remarkable Floors for determining on Google placing their business in the center of that roundabout. Very clever. I might have to try to copy that somewhere else. All right, so we'll move on to the next delegation, item C4, Mike and Kathy Salter. Please come forward. Are they here? Yeah. So again, thank you for coming here today.
Oh,
And,
good afternoon.
Please introduce yourself to Mayor and Council, to the council, and please go ahead. Thank you.
Well, thank you. See if I can navigate this, see if the old guy can do it. Afternoon, Mayor Woodward and councilors. We'd like to thank the Township of Langley for the opportunity to present our safety concerns regarding the intersection of 56th Avenue and 224th Street. We appreciate how pleasant and helpful staff was assisting with the submission. Thank you, Mayor Woodward, for calling to discuss this issue. To Councillor Kuntz for a reply to our letter and presenting a motion to Council for action on this issue, as well as a letter from Paul Cardero, Transportation Engineering Manager, acknowledging our concerns and steps the township is taking to make 56 and 224th and other intersections safer. I've pulled up the first picture here shows the intersection of 224th and 56. And if I move along into, where's this mouse going here? There we are. When we look at a number of these pictures, and I don't know if you can scan through them too, you'll see that there are several sightline obstructions, which include power and communication poles, brush, hedging, tall grass, saplings in the ditch, and debris. This intersection is essential as a main thoroughfare for commuters, fire, police, and ambulance. The lack of regular maintenance to ensure clear sightlines, replacing damaged utility poles, cleanup after accidents, as well as repair of eroded aggregate and potholes at this intersection all contribute to unsafe conditions. Regular scheduled maintenance, as opposed to reacting to requests from the public, could be useful both in time management, costs, as well as contributing to safety. The RCMP may differ on my observations. In the 7 years of commuting to Aldergrove and Gloucester, little traffic enforcement during peak traffic times has been observed. However, I have seen the positive effects of driver feedback signs in several new and existing locations in the township. Perhaps a few more in proximity of the intersection would be one of several beneficial traffic calming tools to be considered. We look forward to seeing the implementation of new traffic measures, enforcement, and regular maintenance. And thank you for your time.
A question from Council. Councillor Kunst.
Yeah, thanks for bringing the delegation forward. I know that I had actually, there was a number of families in Murrayville that are super concerned about this very stretch and also the intersection over by Shoppers Drug Mart. So, yeah, I just wanted to thank you for, doing a delegation and making sure that we all are aware of all the other things on 216th and 56 there. So, or
Yeah.
sorry, 224.
And thank you. And we appreciate that we got the letter from engineering that shows that there's already steps that are being implemented to get things going. I think we all realize that drivers, commuters can be frustrating with the way traffic congestion is, and intersections that aren't clearly identified become hazards. And it's been, and we appreciate that the township is taking action.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the new system. Yeah, I appreciate the delegation and the notice of motion that's related to it. I think a couple of incidents there recently, which you and I had a chance to talk a bit about.
Thank you.
And certainly, you know, that 56th Avenue corridor is seeing a lot of increased traffic, being used as a bypass for Highway 1 and Fraser Highway construction and other things. So
Yeah.
I think it is something that we need to look at, not just in this area, but also Salmon River as well, which is underway with staff. So I appreciate you bringing it forward.
Thank you.
And here in a few minutes, I'll be suggesting to council that we advance the notice of motion here under section C.
Great.
All right.
Thanks very much. Thank you, everybody.
So next delegation is Karen Algren. So again, thanks for coming here today and introduce yourself to the council. And please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor Woodward and members of council. My name is Karen Algren, and I'm here today to present evidence supporting our request that council vote to issue a formal non-concurrence to the proposed TELUS 5G tower at 8550 252nd Street. This is a critical land use decision. Our opposition is not arbitrary, it is unified. We represent not just the immediate neighbors, but the broader community, having gathered approximately 250 signatures on our petition objecting to this tower. We're here to provide counsel with the legal and procedural arguments to ensure that your formal non-concurrence is robust and causes this project to be rejected outright by the federal authority, ISED Canada. Council's decision today rests on your jurisdiction over local land use planning, aesthetic impact, and the integrity that the required federal consultation process. The proposed TELUS tower is a massive 62 meters, the height of a 20-story high-rise building. The scale and the location represent a fundamental, unacceptable conflict with the character and zoning of Glen Valley. The proposed site is zoned rural and lies within the protected agricultural land reserve. This proposed structure has a massive 929 meter squared industrial base with a 62 meter tower positioned as close as 61 meters to a neighboring home. The structure, which will soar in excess of 10 meters above the existing tree line, is not unobtrusive. It violates the aesthetic policies of the official community plan. The approval of a tower of this size on ALR land sets a dangerous precedent that compromises the provincial mandate to preserve agricultural integrity across the entire township. ISED cannot responsibly overrule a municipal decision based on a material conflict with a core high-level provincial and local land use designation like the ALR. The federal authority, ISED, mandates that proponents follow its Client Procedure Circular, CPC-2-0-03, requiring consultation to address reasonable and relevant concerns. ISED has already acknowledged that the primacy of Council's role in May 2025 written response, ISED Spectrum Manager clearly confirmed ISED does not become involved in the process unless requested by the Land Use Authority or the proponent. This statement on the federal record affirms that the township, as the local land use authority, is expected to lead the assessment of local needs and process compliance. We assert that Cypress Land Services and TELUS have violated this consultation mandate through a breach of good faith consultation. When we requested the key technical mapping necessary to explore viable alternative sites, a reasonable and relevant concern, Cypress first gave us a written promise stating, "I expect to have this information ready to share by June 20th. Then they flatly contradicted themselves on July 23rd, explicitly stating, "The precise network engineering data mapping you require is proprietary information that is not shared with the public." By first promising, then deliberately withholding the key data needed to discuss alternatives, Cypress and TELUS have actively sabotaged the transparent consultation process required by the CPC-2-0-03. We urge Council to find that Cypress and TELUS have failed the federal consultation requirement. Council cannot fulfill its own environmental stewardship obligations due to the proponent's refusal to provide documentation. Cypress and TELUS dismissed our request for an environmental impact assessment by arguing there is no statutory requirement. Yet the township has a due diligence responsibility under the official community plan to protect sensitive areas. The refusal to conduct a site-specific environmental impact assessment leaves council with zero verifiable data and constitutes an unacceptable failure to mitigate a known risk to a sensitive area. In conclusion, your decision today must be based on 3 compelling points of failure we have presented. This comprehensive and documented approach makes the rejection final. We formally request that council vote non-concurrence to the TELUS proposal for 8550 252nd Street and the official letter to ISED cite the following. Number 1, ALR and land use conflict. The proposal violates the provincial ALR mandate and local official community plan integrity. 2, federal consultation breach. The proponent failed the CPC 2-0-03 requirement by engaging in documented bad faith and withholding technical data necessary to address reasonable concerns. And 3, unmitigated risk. The refusal to provide an environmental assessment prevents the council from satisfying its local due diligence responsibilities. We trust that council will act decisively and protect the township and the integrity of its planning process. Thank you.
That was a good one, so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
That was a mouthful.
It was appreciate it, and again, it was good to talk to you. I appreciate very much the delegation, and it's on the agenda, and I'm not too concerned that your delegation is going to achieve its goal. So with that, I'll pass you on to Councillor Richter. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We are dealing with it later on today's agenda, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
I had a question, in all the back and forth between the residents and TELUS on the various questions that the residents have had.
Yes.
Was the question ever asked why a 200-foot tower was needed in that location, and did you ever get an answer?
It was asked, and they did not answer.
They did not answer. Okay. Seems like an odd location for a 200-foot tower, but
In a valley,
yeah.
surrounded by 150-foot trees.
Great. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for considering.
Thank you.
I was able to visit the property. I also have a lot of people I've known over the years who live in the area expressed concerns. When I did walk the property, I felt like I was like walking in circles with the proponent, and they were very polite to me and respectful. And I kept saying, well, where is exactly it going to go? And they'd say, I think over there and over there. Well, it wasn't clear to me, so I kept walking around. It seemed like it's going to be hitting a big patch of trees or something, and I was just, do you know exactly where it's going to go, if I may? If they're proponent?
In the front field, it's going to be about a 10,000 square foot fenced area where the field is flat. It's going to go from the fence that borders the McClellan Park and head north. And that's as much as we know, but there are stakes in the ground already. But it will butt right up to the fence of McClellan Park.
Because when I was looking and taking pictures, I do understand those trees are quite high, and I'm not
Yes.
sure how I don't know much about the video tower, cell towers, but it seemed like there would be a blockage of direction unless they took them all down, and it wasn't all that clear to me.
They have told us that they were not planning on removing any trees, but I don't see how they cannot remove any trees to build this.
Anyway, thank you very much. It is on the agenda, and as I say, I was
Yes.
odd, and I was trying to figure it out, but I appreciate your time.
All right, thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Next, last delegation, Jerry St. Germain, please come forward. Do we still call you Senator, Jerry? Well, I know a lot of us do, so again, it's a pleasure having you here today. And
It was a good day.
I'm not sure you need to introduce yourself, but some in the audience may not know. So if you could introduce yourself to council, and please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, your worship and members of council, ladies, I'll take my hat off, I'll put it back on because I got no hair. However, yes, I am the former senator of Langley, Pemberton, Whistler, former member of parliament from Mission Port Moody, cabinet minister under a former government in Ottawa, and honored to be here with you today, all of you. Your worship, as a supporter of the Township of Langley Farm and Ranch Exhibition Society, I'm honored to address you and council today regarding the historical berry farm located on Old Yale Road. My presence here today is that I have been involved as a volunteer and resident of the Township of Langley for the past 51 years. And my involvement includes presently the Township of Langley Ranch and Farm Society, Valley West Rodeo, the Langley Foundation, the Cranberry Festival, and as a volunteer, I have worked in the agricultural industry in British Columbia, formerly chairman of the BC Chicken Marketing Board and other things in the agricultural field. The site that we're referring to, featuring the significant dairy barn constructed around 1915, holds an essential place in our community's agricultural heritage and represents the rich farming legacy of the Langley Township. I am possibly telling you something that you already know, but our society acknowledges the importance of maintaining the integrity of this site, not only as a landmark of agricultural history, but also as a potential resource for our community. In light of its recent restoration by the Langley Heritage Society, we wish to propose a collaborative effort to explore viable options that would facilitate the utilization of this historical farm, while preserving at all times its historical farming integrity and bringing together community interests and insights. We believe that there's a great potential for the farm to serve not only as a monument to our historical roots, but also as an active, engaging space for teaching, and I repeat, teaching, learning, and community connection. As already stated, we have the nonprofit Township of Langley Ranch and Farm Society established with a group of volunteers chaired by Dale Sipe, Chris Pack, who's associated with the CEO of the Thunderbird facility on 72nd, Lois Clough, and Rich Kiedis, all people that are involved in the equine industry or the farming industry. We need a home site in the township with some form of long-term lease, and it's been suggested that 49 years or longer. In the past, conversation with some of our community leaders, we've discussed various sites in the township, namely 216th and 80th at the freeway, where the township holds ownership to a fairly large tract of land. The Natteras property on 48th Avenue, approximately 32 acres there. The 20 acres that are contiguous to the Natteras property on 48th are also very interesting. And logically, I go back to the Berry Farm property. And so that's what really brings me here today. There's a need for our township, in our township, for fair and exhibition grounds, where the equine community can expand, as well as the other following uses in agriculture: 4-H, equine events, livestock shows and presentation through 4-H and others, dog and cat showings, and a possible rodeo site, weekend flea markets, and whatever you, as councillors, as a council, would like to suggest could be considered. And other people in the community as well would be consulted. Now, what are the benefits? Well, the benefits are it would leave a legacy of the past and the present in the agricultural Langley, one of the equine capitals in North America. As well, the community and family focus, which honors farming and ranching traditions while involved with modern festivities. Thirdly, the economic benefits that will flow to the Township of Langley. Visitors and tourism dollars will flow into this community. However, to do this, this may require a distinct symbol to identify it as a must-see attraction for all, including, and this would include the presence of tourists, relatives, and friends from all over the world. And the examples that I'm going to use aren't necessarily cast in stone, but are merely suggestions. The highest Ferris wheel possibly in Canada, or the highest totem pole, brings the indigenous component to this discussion. Draft horses, the hitch similar to Budweiser's. And let's not forget the history and the presence of the Potter's Distillery in the Langleys and their hitch of black Percherons of when I moved here in the early 60s was an attraction that many came to. After having said all this, simply put, the ask is we establish a home for this dream project. We request that council direct staff to work with stakeholders to prepare a report to explore what we presented today. We respectfully request some form of a secure commitment to allow us to work on a business plan and then go to the private sector to raise funds, and I repeat, the private sector to raise funds and start the process combined with all levels of government and possibly in conjunction with other groups with similar interests in the township. I'd like to add at this time that I've already spoken to some of our leading industrialists and business people in the area. And once we would have a firm commitment of something, funds, private funds will flow in this direction. My friends, time is of essence. And when you're 87 years old and 88 in 1 month, it means that much more. But in all seriousness, time is of essence, and I'll leave you with this. It's a quote. Every giant journey begins with a single step. And let's make this the first step, please. Thank you for your kind attention. And if time does permit, Your Worship, I'll try and answer any questions. And there will be supportive documentation through the mayor's offices for each member of council. Thank you again. God bless all of us.
Yeah, thanks for coming here today, Ms. Bauer. If we could take the presentation down and then have the members of council come up in the exchange. Yeah, thanks again for coming here today, and very much appreciate the submission, very timely. If council is going to start looking at what to do with the Berry Farm. So our first member of council would like to ask us a few questions is Councillor Pratt. Councillor Pratt, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Senator, for the presentation. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think, to be honest, there's parts of both presentations that really excite me. And I think that the nice thing is we, despite being in a bit of a rush, can hopefully work together to find something that works for everybody involved. You mentioned Valley West being involved in the group, I believe the Valley West Stampede, is that correct?
Well, that I'm working with them and other groups, and this is how the society was formed, is that we wanted to form a society to possibly find a home for a fair and exhibition grounds. And it isn't focused only on the Valley West. There's other aspects of it, that the Equine Center, and working with The only, we've worked with Thunderbird because they're in the equine business at a higher level. And no way are we going to compete with them. We're not interested in it, but they're prepared to help us. And they bring a certain level of expertise in the equine industry that would really be a great assistance to all of us.
Great, that's actually a perfect segue to sort of the question of,
Yeah.
between Thunderbird, Valley West, what sort of niche or role do you see this facility playing that isn't met by the other two?
A fairground, 4-H. 4-H has no place to go. And I asked one of the fellows I've worked with for years in politics to go down to the PNE because I couldn't get there this year because of family commitments. And he went down there and he asked 2 or 3 people about 4-H. They didn't even know what it was about. And this was in the barns. And so there is definitely a need. My neighbor's family is in the 4-H. So I'm quite aware of that there is a definite need for that. And it'll be a total fair and exhibition grounds. And I own and my family own a performance horse, and we have no place for him, for that horse to perform in this province. So he's in Alberta, and that money should be staying here. And these are types of things that could take place there at all levels. Dogs and cat shows, and there's a litany of things. You can even bring your chickens and compete with chickens if you want. I was a chicken farmer at 16th and 208th. So I'm familiar with that aspect of it. Plus, I've had a cattle ranch in Princeton with 1,000 head of cattle. So I've got a fair understanding of what agriculture is all about. But I'm no expert. I'm just a lucky little Métis child that came from Manitoba and came to the right place, British Columbia, and here we are.
Great, I appreciate that. And Your Worship, I would have a referral motion, but I see there's other speakers, so when the time comes.
Appreciate the heads up on that. So when we complete all delegations, why don't we process
Sure.
them all in sequence? Next council speaker is Councillor Kuntz. Go ahead.
Hi, Jerry.
Hey,
Good presentation.
thanks.
I know this has been top of mind, your vision, for a long time, and I'm glad to see that we could finally all start talking about it publicly. And so many, that barn, that red barn at the Berry Farm is just one of these landmark places. So I guess one of my, you're right about 4-H. I mean, I was part of 4-H when I was a kid, and the closest fairs were Matsqui, and then the PNE was the highlight. So it'd be awesome to see something like that happen in Langley. I had a question about the BC Farm Museum, and if I'm thinking exhibition grounds, that they've got a capital campaign and they're looking for more space, and I just thought it might be a really cool way to as a tourist destination to if we could, or if you've thought of contemplating exploring the BC Farm Museum as a place as well.
Margaret, Councillor Margaret, definitely, and that's when I think I emphasized collaborative, a collaborative effort, and there'd be no doors closed. And I've been there. I visited them recently through another volunteer role that I play, and I would definitely be interested in working with anybody that would add to the heritage of this place. Because I can remember in 1953, when I first went through Langley, the only thing that was really prominent was Potter's Distillery and Buckerfields. They were right on the Fraser Highway, basically. And and the other thing that I think is important, I would like that main house to be restored to the way things were in 1915. And that could be done. And that would be a real museum and an education. Because I grew up in a house, we had no electricity, no water. It was outside bathrooms. And I remember, and I've watched the progress over my 88 years, how we've progressed and how the younger generation doesn't really understand fully. And that learning process would help them understand where this country came from and how it was built.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor.
Hi, Senator. How are you doing? Yeah, I'm wondering, have you guys, we had that delegation earlier from LEPS and that coalition. Have you talked to those guys at all?
No, I haven't, because I've really just got active on this file. Councillor Tim, you know that I have my family challenges at the moment, and unfortunately, I haven't got the time I used to have, and nor do I have a staff anymore, other than my eldest daughter, who, between looking after me and my aging wife, she's got a full-time job plus. So, but no, there's no reason why we couldn't talk to them as well. And as I said, collaboration. Collaboration and volunteerism will be the hallmarks of how we would run this.
Yeah, because early in your presentation, you mentioned about education and that, and to me, that is a big part of what I'd like to see on this property. And you know, if you guys could work together on a concept, I think you know, highlighting agribusiness and different aspects that you're presenting here, and somehow fold in so the kids can learn a little more about the agricultural background and history and of the future of thing. I'd love to see that kind of collaboration.
Well, it's definitely a possibility, and if I'm involved, I can make that commitment, and your message will be passed on to others that I'm working with.
Thanks, Senator.
Thank you.
Yeah, Senator Germain, thank you for
Yes.
coming. It's always a pleasure to listen. It's certainly two different presentations, one from LEPS and now one from yours, and interesting about even to the point where you're looking at something like a Washington State Fair, an example thereof. I'm sure you know the Chubb, the Berry family, Chubb and Bill and Sister Pat, right?
I didn't know them well, Councillor, but I did. I have met them.
I remember back, I think it's in 2019, 18, 19, where we were discussing the farm, and actually, Pat, I bought a car off her, a Volvo, but I remember what they said. Well, they wanted to be remembered, and they wanted it to be something of value for Langley. And that was something that they said to me and other councillors and the mayor at the time, and we proceeded accordingly. And I guess my question to you, you know, with this is a prime location. We've always said that. It comes off a major highway. It separates the city and the township. It's heading off a highway to, you know, Abbotsford, and then to adjoining the freeway later on as you go on. So it is a prime location, and that was another thing I guess you and the previous delegation should look at. And I was wondering how, I think you answered the question, how far you're along. This is just at the beginning stages right now.
Oh, yeah, we're in the embryonic stage. We've got the society formed. It's been formed for about a year, and we've been assessing, it's as I pointed out, we looked at other properties, but that there ties in exactly with what the previous lady from LEP, I guess she was from LEP, you know, what she is focusing on, I think we maybe are trying to do a little bit more, but maybe not. But in the same breath, we would definitely work with whoever's out there, and the educational part and the historic values we would really want to retain them in any way, shape, or form that's possible.
Well, you know the next question I'm going to ask you, that you and I run into Indigenous Major Projects group, and I know that you've got some contacts and connections to them. Have you got any suggestions on meeting with them?
Well, no, actually, since I retired, the last 12 years since I retired at 75 from the Senate, and I chaired the Senate Standing Committee on Aboriginal Peoples for 7 years. And to this day, I still volunteer. I've been made honorary citizen to various native bands because of the volunteer work I've done. So I have a fairly reasonable understanding, and I am Indigenous myself in background, but that makes no difference. The fact is that I have worked with them. And I'm prepared to work with them. I know the people. My daughters went to school with the chief of Kwantlen, so, and she was at our home on numerous occasions as a child. So I am aware, and I think we can contribute something that would add to that venue or that participation on the part of our Indigenous people.
One last question. I don't know if I've given you one of my 150 pins. Were you around when the Langley was being formed
Well,
in 1873?
Hey, well, listen, I waved goodbye to Noah and the animals.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyhow, have I answered your questions or?
Yeah, yes, you did. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yes, over here.
I'm-
Good afternoon, Senator. Nice to see you.
I'm sorry for turning my back to you and Councillor Kim, but I'm not doing it intentionally. Go ahead.
Yeah, no apology required, but thank you. Couple of thoughts. One I mentioned with the last presenter on the same property is the preservation of heritage, and I hear you saying that. And I know that was, like I said, that was brought up at the Heritage Advisory Committee, that specific site. In fact, talking about the residences on it and if restoring it to the way it was originally, I think is a wonderful idea. So thank you for that. Northwest Washington Fair. I have family in Linden, and we've been going there every year for years and years. And it really is a fabulous facility, and just the programming there, and just so many things going on other than, like you said, like the 4-H aspect, like the animals. I mean, people enter flowers into competitions, and like it goes on and on and on, and we enjoy it so much. And the one I feel closest to that, maybe locally, would be the PNE, but I don't even know if it's really the same at all. But so I think that's really exciting that we could bring that to this side of the border. Excuse me. So I've got a tickle in my throat, so I'll just finish up with, I really appreciate your quote, and I wrote it down. Every giant journey begins with a single step. Thank you for those words. That's a very powerful statement. Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Councillor. And I did visit the Northwest, the Linden Fairground. Spent the whole day with the manager, gone over this for as much as we possibly could, because I'm in a learning process as well. Yeah. This isn't something that I've done. I've flown airplanes, and I've been a policeman and a few other things, but I have not created a fair or exhibition grounds as of yet. So I'm in a steep learning curve myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have another question? No. There we go. Yeah, so thank you again for your delegation here today, and council is probably going to make a referral motion here in a few minutes, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, your worship.
I want to congratulate William. We're almost there. You've been very patient. But we're going to do a couple more things. We're going to do a couple more things first. So I'm going to move that we process these delegations now. So I'm going to move that we refer delegation C3 to staff for a report, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on that referral? Ms. Bauer, could you activate the start button there for me? There we are. Councillor Kuntz and there we go. Councillor Ferguson, if you could vote on that referral. Yeah, no problem. That carries unanimously. So we're going to hand it over to, I believe, Councillor Pratt. You had a motion. Go ahead. Oh, go.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Yeah, and I wrote this one sort of on the fly after the both, so if there's any amendments, I'm more than amenable to them. But the motion, and Ms. Bauer, I can circulate this afterwards, depending on any amendments. What I've written reads that council directs staff to prepare a report based on delegations C1 and C6, subject to the following: A, consultation with stakeholders and community members; B, Potential uses for the historic Berry Farm should celebrate the Township of Langley's agricultural history, offer opportunities to showcase the unique characteristic of our agricultural community, of our agricultural community, strengthen our food security, and C, that any potential timeline and costs associated with the variety of options be presented to council.
Yeah, I'll second that. Is there any other discussion? Oh, Councilor Pratt, do you wish to speak that any further?
No, I think that speaks for itself.
You
I
can
hope.
provide it, you can email that to
For sure.
Ms. Bauer. If anybody wants it up on the screen, potentially we could arrange that here in the next minute or so. I'm not seeing any other speakers, though. Is there any other speakers? Nope, seeing none. Does anybody wish to have it on the screen prior to voting on it?
I can do that.
Councilor Martins.
Yeah, I don't want to complicate things with getting it on the screen. I just wanted to clarify, was part of this motion that the two delegations communicate amongst themselves to collaborate?
Yeah, I think the report, the motion would be directing staff to initiate the creation of a report, and in that process, Clause A asks for consultation with stakeholders, and I believe that the two groups would be considered two of the stakeholders, and so that conversation would be occurring that way. Because at the end of the day, I think what we get from council, or what we get from staff, will be dependent on what the communication is between the two groups.
Right, not seeing any other discussion, I'll call the question on that referral motion.
Just as I'm sending the email.
That carries unanimously. I'm also going to make a motion to amend the agenda to advance notice of motion 01 to the section of C of the agenda. Is there a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Ms. Bauer, do you want to call a question on that? So you've labeled the current, there we are. So I'll start the question on that. This is to amend the agenda. Just to amend it, just to move it forward, to see whether council wants to do that. That carries unanimously, so I'll turn it over. Councillor Coons, go ahead with your notice of motion.
Yeah, thanks for moving this agenda item so that we could discuss it and you don't have to wait. So I'll just move 01, pedestrian and traffic safety on 224th Street from Fraser Highway to 56th Avenue.
Seconded by Councillor Pratt, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we heard the reasons why this is important, so I won't belabor it. I'll just let council deliberate.
So no other speakers, call a question on 01. That carries unanimously. Is there anything else under C1 to 6? I believe that should cover it. All right. No, we'll just wait for that to come up. Yeah, it's on the agenda. We'll just leave that where it is. Great, so we're going to move on to presentations. And again, William, you've been very patient, and I appreciate that. For those that don't know, William's been waiting for over an hour to receive a certificate from the Township of Langley for securing gold in the 2025 Canada Cup Regatta in London, Ontario. And I also did some, you achieved a bronze medal as well, is that correct? I'm not seeing it around your neck here today, though, so I guess only gold matters when you win bronze and gold. But you also were the lead on the winning BC team, is that correct? Yeah. And so again, congratulations on that. I think you're also a member of the Fort Langley Youth Rowing Society and a volunteer instructor. Yeah, so fabulous work, and congratulations. You're also a member of the University of Victoria's rowing team. So again, fabulous work. I have a rowing machine, and I don't last more than about 5 or 10 minutes. So fabulous work to you. And again, congratulations. And if I have it right, you learned to row or practice or trained in the Bedford Channel. Is that correct? Yes. So what a fabulous reminder of the importance also and the value that the Bedford Channel has to the community and youth and athletic sport within the Township of Langley. So we have a certificate here for you to congratulate you on your gold medal. Council, if you would pull them up. Okay, so we have a second presentation from staff, the LED video displays and audio systems, and with the Fraser Rivers presentation theater renovation, Mr. Winsley can stay exactly where he is, and we can see him while he gives his presentation. So please go ahead. Except we can't see you, can only hear you.
Selected individuals are able to see and hear. Thank you very much, Woodward. There's a little bit of irony in this presentation in that 2005, we opened this theater with new technology at the time, and someone had to give the first staff presentation, and they got the young guy to do it. So that was me at the time. Here we are 20 years later, and first staff presentation, they picked the old guy to give the presentation. So here we are. Do I get a mouse? Stephen? Thanks. Tested my eyesight. So thank you. Council requested this presentation back on September 15th. And it's really regarding our technology, video displays, audio systems in our different Township of Langley facilities. So that's what we're gonna walk through. There's a lot of information. I'll probably skip over some of it, but I know Council has a copy of the presentation and can ask questions as we go. As everybody probably knows, going to sporting or cultural events, the audiovisual and video displays become such an important and critical part of attending an event these days, to the point where if you go to an event and there isn't a video display, it seems very different and very odd. It's such an important part of what our facilities here we're going to talk about do. And every survey that our teams do or that we do in our facility or that customer service feedback that we get always talks about the audio and the visual in the facility as one of the most important things. So the Langley Event Center was an early leader in this technology back in 2008. Pretty much the first non-professional sports facility in the country to install video displays. It was only the NHL facilities and in Toronto's case the NBA that really used video in their facilities. And McLeod Athletic Park was not far behind. LEC was also the first to integrate with arenas and gymnasiums, to have theatrical lighting, to have broadcast quality production and free web streaming. We offered free Wi-Fi, which was unheard of at the time. Now has become such an expectation, and put the LEC really years ahead of its time back in 2008. One of the things that council's heard me say over the years, we had such a competitive advantage in bidding and attracting large events, partly because of the facility, but also partly because of our technology. And we actually went all the way up to COVID. So I guess that'd be what, 11, 12, 20, all the way to 2020 without losing a bid as a result of some of the technology we had. People keep on saying to me, isn't the LEC brand new? And so for a little bit of fun, we went back and said, well, what was the technology back in 2008 and 2007? These were the phones. The iPhone just rolled out in 2007. So I challenge people to think how many phones you've had since 2008 as we go through this presentation, because the technology is amazing in terms of what has happened, and since the Event Center, McLeod Park and others have come online. So quickly became a benchmark for other facilities. The technology production delivery has been really widely replicated and copied across the country. We were the only Canada West facility to have a video screen in the gymnasium for what Trinity Western uses for basketball and volleyball. Now I believe actually everyone across Western Canada now has a video screen. They come to the LEC, their coaches see what we had, they go back, they tell their athletic director, hey, we need to get on board with this technology. I think Abbotsford, which opened roughly the same time as us, is on their third screen. Kamloops did a large upgrade a few years ago. Kelowna just rolled out their new video screen technology for their WHL facility. And even facilities like high school gymnasiums now in Langley, some of the schools are included, are putting video screens up on their gymnasium walls. So technology's come a long, long ways. So we've gotten 18 years out of our video display, specifically the event center, which it's amazing, such a good news story. But it by far exceeds typical industry cycles and standards. And as I mentioned, the technology has really changed. Quickly to run through our existing video screens, I actually have these in more detail, so I'm just going to quickly flip through these slides. But we have 9 existing facilities that have video screens on them. There's a list there basically of the 5 non-LEC, the latest of which is Salisbury, Place by the River. And then we have our 4 at the LEC. And over time, our user groups and the community and our spectators and different people get used to these, as I mentioned. And so they start asking about other facilities. So I'll touch on some of these as I go. But staff kind of for this presentation put together a list of potentially 6 other facilities that, not right now, but over time, may be something to consider for council in the future. We also have 2 audio system priorities. I think we've talked a little bit about McLeod Park when we are considering, or we put in a bid for the Canadian Track and Field Championships. But the system there is lacking coverage and just not up to standards for events and facilities. And then the stadium at Langley Event Center, each time the audio system is required there, it's required to be rented, so it's costly, but also has quality and safety issues because the speakers aren't permanently mounted, so they're on the field and in the field of play and cause a few different issues. So 2 audio system priorities that we'll talk about. Just in terms of kind of why we're here and why staff have brought this forward, council is always asking staff to be a little bit proactive on things so they don't hear about it after the fact. We are starting to have some pretty significant challenges I'll walk through with some of our displays. Each of these has been submitted as part of our 2026 to 2030 budget submissions with finance. So there's an example sheet there, but I just did want to mention that they are all submitted and would be something that council would consider as part of our budget process. And I'll walk through them just quickly in order. And if council has any questions, your worship, as we go, feel free to ask. But these are in a little bit of priority order from a staff, user group, and community perspective. So the Arena Bowl at the Event Center back in 2008, the rough budget replacement for this is $2.19 million. Each of these, especially these early ones, have been asked for a number of years. The Arena Bowl, I think, was about 1.7 million 4 or 5 years ago when we first started requesting it. And as technology gets better, but the prices also have gone up a little bit. Very heavily used. The last point there is the one that I'll highlight. There was over 220 Arena Bowl events in 2024 that utilized the video display. And council and the community and staff will often hear me say there's nothing like the Langley Event Center. There's no other facility that uses its video screen 220 times in a year in terms of the amount of use that we get in that facility. It's phenomenal. The picture there is of the recent powwow event that was put on with Stala Arts and Culture Society. But it is very, very, very heavily used. We've got great use of it over the last 18 years. However, pretty significant maintenance and issues with its reliability in the last few years. So you can see on each of these 3 pictures, there's a black area. There's a vertical here. There's a little panel on the game day one. There's a little more than 3/4 of the screen is out on that one in the bottom right. These are unpredictable in terms of when they happen, and we have examples. There was a Vancouver Bandits game actually this year when on the morning of the game they turned on the video screen and one entire side was out facing the spectators. They're not easy to fix, and they're expensive. It costs them somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 to $2,000 each time to have a company come in and repair these. But also, if in the case of the Bandits game, there's a basketball court down, you can't actually get a lift in the proper spot to be able to get up there and deal with the issues. So it becomes very complicated for staff, and it's just starting to happen more and more regularly. Displays are no longer produced, obviously, as technology has changed and not supported. We had a really good short-term solution for sourcing parts, and I'll give them a shout out because it was very nice of them. But when Rogers Arena recently replaced their video screen, their four-sided, they had the same board as us, exact same. They were nice enough to let us go down and rescue and scavenge through for a whole bunch of extra power supplies and parts that were still salvageable. So that's got us past through the last 2 years or so, but starting to run out of those parts as well. The next one up is the stadium at Langley Event Center. Again, we talked kind of about standards for events and expectations of people attending different things. We had a delegation here a meeting or two ago from Langley United Soccer. Their League One men's and women's program is having great success. Vancouver FC obviously is there. Trinity Western Rugby. We've had a lot of provincial and national championships. One upcoming event that's kind of, I guess, raised importance to us. We have a CONCACAF game that we're hosting. It's the Vancouver Rise, who regularly play in Burnaby. But they're hosting their CONCACAF championship, one of their championship games. Is it next week, Mike? 16th, on the 16th. I should have introduced Mike Netzel, who's here with me as our director of events, and he'll have the real details as I require them. But Vancouver Rise are playing there. CONCACAF during their inspections has highlighted two main areas. One is the lack of audio-visual, and the other is permanent change rooms. So something that I think council hears about there. And
Mr. Winslade, I do have a question from council. Councilor Pratt?
Oh, I was happy to wait until it's over.
You can go ahead now. You can take questions as we go. Mr. Winslade offered us that. Go ahead.
Sure. Specifically regarding the soccer stadium, was there a screen anticipated in the original scope of the project, or was it just not anticipated that we would ever put a screen at the LEC?
This facility has a long history. So in some original kind of drawings and concept plans, there definitely was a video screen, as well as, the long talked about roof and a few other things. So it's always been contemplated. We do have conduit and services that have been run and anticipation of a screen on the north side. In this picture, you can actually see VFC rents a video screen for their games currently. So it wouldn't be that exact location, but in behind where that one is shown.
Kind of in behind on the
grass
berm?
slope is, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And if any member of council wants to ask questions as we go, we can also leave it to the end, but you can just request to speak right at the end. Go ahead, Councilor Coons.
Yeah, mine is probably better at the end.
Okay, so just anybody who wants to ask questions as we go ahead and then we'll give a chance at the end for everyone to ask questions. Go ahead, Mr. Winslade.
Thank you. So the next screen, a little bit duplicate because we use the same picture, but the next screen is a little bit related. It's the audio part of the stadium. Again, right now for any League One game, VFC game, rugby, high school rugby, all the different uses, they're renting the sound system that's being used. Not ideal, as I highlighted earlier. The budget for a permanent sound system we've come up with is $255,000. We do have an offer from both League One teams and VFC to cost share that on kind of a 1/3 basis. So if that's something council wanted to take a look at, they are willing to contribute because it's so important to their use of the stadium. The little tricky part about this one is the budget numbers do require use of a support system from a video screen because the speakers would be mounted as part of that display system. So if we weren't doing the video display, we'd probably have to reconsider this number and come up with a few other options for how we might mount it. This is probably another good news story, other than the fact that we require a budget if we want to proceed with it. But the arenas at the Langley Event Center, our newest arenas project, because of the focus really on our minor and our youth sport organizations, a video screen wasn't contemplated when we put the budget together. However, we have planned for that option in what we call Rink 1, which is the 1,200 seat, 2,000 seat spectator arena that's pictured there. So we have provided the supports, we've provided the conduit power and all those different types of things if we wanted to do it in the future. What's happened as we've begun to give tours to especially our youth-focused sports groups, they're all getting very excited about bidding on provincial championships and national championships and hosting big fundraising tournaments and all that, hockey, lacrosse, ball hockey, basketball, others. So as we've spoken more and more to them and shown them the building, it's becoming a little more obvious that the video is something we probably should discuss and consider. So staff have put together this option for council to consider. Again, it is all prepared for, but just it wasn't in the original budget. But groups are excited about the option. Another existing one, I know all of you have been there at one point or another. It's almost unlookable right now and watchable. That video board at McLeod Park was actually from 2008. It was put at the temporary Empire Stadium, if you remember, during the Olympics when the Whitecaps and Lions had to move there. It was purchased by us, and a few community groups participated back in 2013 and installed there at McLeod. The support structure and everything is great and can be reused, but the screen itself is overdue for a replacement and challenges there. Something that's probably not really recommending right now, but we just wanted to highlight, we talked about this during the track and field bid, as I think I touched on earlier, but the sound system for McLeod Athletic Park for larger events, provincial, national events, needs to be supplemented. And so we've just included this number for council's information as we go through. Another pretty big success story actually is in Aldergrove at the water park at the Aldergrove Community Center. We originally put this video screen up so that staff could use it for timing primarily and any urgent messages. So, you know, when we were planning the facility, we said, well, what happens if there is lightning coming? We need to notify everybody to, you know, get out of the water. And so staff said, well, it'd be great to have a video display that we could rely on, for example, and a big one and different messaging of how much time's left in a session and different things. So this video screen was put up for some other reasons, but we thought, well, it'd also be cool to show movies. So you can see in the picture 2 different examples of the events that staff put on there where they have movies playing. You can float in the water and watch the movie. I think they call them dive-ins instead of drive-ins. Okay.
Yeah, installation 2018, that's fairly new. Is the existing screen at end of life now?
Yeah, when you purchase these screens, the industry standard is they tell you 5 to 7 years. So, you know, in the case of the LEC, getting 18 years out of something is phenomenal. So 5 to 7 years, this is nearing the end of life. This will not go longer like other ones do, primarily because of the exposure, as mentioned here, the moisture intrusion, UV exposure, the chlorine in the water, etc. So this one will probably always be on the shorter end of that lifespan.
So is it failing right now?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to add, I don't think we necessarily said on the slide, but we do have isolated dead pixels and failures creating blackouts at certain times of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to go as quick as I can, so I'm probably not highlighting some important things. Aldergrove Community Arena, there's a new owner of what used to be the Aldergrove Kodiaks, now the Aldergrove Ironmen. They, together with our youth organizations, have kind of asked a few times about, hey, what about a possible video display? You can see in this picture the big plain wall in the top kind of center ice. That was wired at the time for a future video screen. It since has signage for our organizations like Home of, Aldergrove Minor Hockey, and Aldergrove Skating Club, those types of things. But it could be there again. Not necessarily a high priority, but something groups asked for, so we want to make sure we covered it off. This is a bit of an interesting one, the field house at the Langley Events Center. For provincial championships, we actually rent a screen. We borrowed actually from Thunderbird Equestrian in the past and also rented a screen and hung it. So it's only used a few times a year. This is the budget to actually put one up permanently, but the note down the left-hand side is just what I wanted to highlight, which is because we have the 4-sided video screen in the Arena Bowl, if we were to actually replace that screen, Staff are hoping that we can get enough good power supplies and good pixels and a quality board that we will be able to piece it together into one wall-mounted board that could service the field house for hopefully a number of years before it needed to be done, rather than just discarding the entire screen. So not really asking for the budget in this case, just wanted to highlight it for down the road, but also that's hopefully what staff plan to do. The gymnasium's primarily just used on weekends, so they don't get the same number of hours necessarily. The center gym there, installed in 2013, still good. It definitely getting a little bit older, it's okay, but in a future budget year, that'll probably have to be considered. Same as the South Gymnasium. Again, not quite as, it gets used a lot. You can see the picture in the bottom right there, that's Trinity Western, their athletic awards evening. Langley United Soccer also does a very similar event. Minor Hockey did a similar event. It's heavily used, but still in good shape. George Preston, there's actually just a mistake on that. The install date in George Preston was 2016, not 2008, so 2016. These boards again are probably okay. The note at the bottom, just above the photos, just to highlight, is staff's budget submissions also include a new scoreboard. So that's the one that's actually hung over center. It's not video, it's just fixed digit. And the sound system that the teams believe is a priority there. So just want to highlight that. And then some just for down the road, because we haven't heard these requests yet, but as the facility starts to get used more and more, may come up. So Smith Athletic Park, the indoor, if that was something that wanted to be considered, we've done a little bit of planning for it, not a lot. These would be end-mounted video screens. The budget is shown there. And then similar to the outdoor, right now this is being used primarily by our youth, and it'll be used by the middle school and high school, I'm sure. Probably won't warrant a video screen necessarily, but over time, if it starts to be used more and more for events, larger games and tournaments, that would be a possibility. And then just two more, I think, to go, or three more to go. Fraser River Presentation Theater here, as I mentioned at the start, 2005. Some minor upgrades, but new install in 24-25, so we should be in good shape here for quite a while. I believe most of you were at Salishan Place by the River during some of the openings, but the video screen may not have been there yet, so it is there now. There's a picture of it. It's getting extremely well used. There's a lot of rentals, lectures, parties. I believe the ukulele ensemble might be using it coming up. And I think they even booked their first wedding, so it's getting heavily used and should be in good shape again for a while. And then council just recently approved funding for the new exterior display at the Langley Event Center, again, because it's outside, it takes a bit more abuse with the weather. So that was just installed here in 2025, so that's been upgraded and good for a while. So for two last summary slides, one is based upon our events, our user groups, our operations, some staff feedback, we kind of took a stab here at kind of our priority order. Of course, Mayor and Council probably has some other inputs into the priority, but for staff, the top five are kind of the ones that we really are focusing on in terms of our upcoming budgets. The arena bowl at the event center, the stadium at the event center, the new arenas, the McLeod Athletic Park replacement, and then the water park replacement. Those are kind of what we've identified there for council's benefit. And then just want to touch on kind of, well, why are we here now type of a thing. Council had asked for us to come forward if there was any condition sensitive issues or timeline constraints for these facilities. And we are getting really worried about the Arena Bowl screen in terms of the large events that happen there and the effect of an outage if that whole screen went down. The first there talks about the process for, EOI, design, production, delivery, installation, commissioning. It's about a 6 to 9 month process. So if you count on your fingers like I did, here we are in October. We're really kind of pushing April, May right now in terms of if we kind of got going today where we'd hit on the 6 end month. If we hit the 9 end month, we're more like June or July. the biggest challenge for us is the logistical challenges of putting these screens in and making the changes of the existing ones have to happen around our existing event and booking schedules and our opening dates for if it's a new facility such as the arenas. So we have a really small window in April and early May of 2026 if we wanted to try to do any of these screens. That's the time when we switch from ice to dry season in our arenas. It's just before the water park opening, and it's before a number of event commitments that we have next year. It's give or take 2 weeks to do one of these screens, and so I know you all know enough about our schedules to know we don't have 2 weeks just sitting there to be able to black out. So we're really looking at a tight window to successfully achieve these, whichever year it happens to be down the road, unless we plan ahead for it. And I mentioned the council request to let them know, so got us to this presentation, and happy to take any other questions.
Great, thank you. I do have a couple questions, so we'll go there. Councilor Richter.
Yes, I'd like to backtrack to some of the slides. The one on the Fraser River Presentation Center, which was installed this year. Do we have an anticipated lifespan for this system, and how much did this particular system actually cost? That's my first question, so maybe I can go one at a time.
Sure. The last question first, the actual cost, it was part of the overall upgrades to the facility, including the seat I'm sitting in and all the other items. Don't recall the budget, but I'm gonna ballpark $750,000 or something for the upgrades in total. That's not the video, but we have all new lighting, new audiovisual, new cameras. It's new everything. We could find out the cost of the screens if you're interested. As far as the lifespan, they should last a good long time. It's a different technology here.
Okay, but how long is long? I'm a little concerned with 5 to 7 years. I'm getting to that question.
Yeah, I'm just gonna flip here to my slide. I don't have that. You put me on the spot, but we got 20 years out of the first.
Yeah.
This is more of a computer question probably than it is a video screen question because of the overall system. But I think we're safe for. I'm just going to give it a good 10 years.
10 years.
You can call me on it 10 years from now.
Okay. Oh, maybe you'll be retired by then. Okay. Going to the exterior display at the LEC, same question. What did this new display cost us, and what is its anticipated lifetime?
The budget the council approved for this one was $350,000.
Okay.
I think it came in just slightly under that, a little bit less, but that was the budget. This is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I think the companies would tell us we'd be lucky to get our 7, but we did get 18 out of it. So, I'm hopeful that we're going to get a good long lifespan out of it.
So what, 10 years again? 7?
I would hope for longer, actually, to tell you the truth. It's each of these screens, in the presentation, it mentions different companies. And I don't want to say anything poorly about some of them, but some screens are just better than others. It's like buying a television. Right? You can get one that looks great for 3 or 4 years, and then you need to replace it, or you can invest in one that lasts you a long, long time. And we try to, where we can, make sure we're going through our due diligence through the procurement process to get really good quality screens that have good support and are from good companies that have been around for a long time and have great references and should last us a long time. So, I would hope to get more than 10 years out of any of these new boards that we get.
Okay. Your slide with the possible priority order. Now, if I add up that budget column, I'm coming to a total of approximately 8.7 million.
I'll trust you, I didn't add it up.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, so we're here talking about the first one today of the 2.19 million. But if we want to do all of these, that's 8.7 million in today's dollars. And we're looking at maybe a lifespan of 5 to 10 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah, again, I hope that staff do a great job of picking these and maintaining them over the years, and we get more than 10 years out of any one of them. But again, staff aren't recommending we do this whole list by any stretch of the imagination. We just want to give council a good overview of all the different displays and systems we have in the township, and possible requests from user groups down the road.
Okay, so I guess where I'm going with this question is, if we're having to anticipate replacement of this capital asset every 7 to 10 years, somewhere in there, are we gonna set up a reserve for this? How much are we gonna put into it?
A reserve isn't anything that we've contemplated. What we do each year as part of our 5-year financial plan, working together with Mayor, Council, and Finance, is kind of project out the next 5 years in terms of the budget submissions. But as staff, we actually have an entire lifespan of a facility forecast that we do, our facilities group does. So you'd be able to, look out, let's say, the exterior screen that we just replaced, they've projected a lifespan and it's on a spreadsheet for, a future year. And we work with finance in terms of those projections. And then, as council's aware, each year council looks at those priorities and has to, every division does the same thing with a long list of items. So council can determine those priorities. But for staff, we track it and we forecast it on a long-term basis.
Okay, and are these all need to have, or are some of them nice to have? What I'm getting at here is, can a phasing occur of this 8.7 million?
Certainly. As I mentioned, staff are kind of focused on the top 5 for differing reasons, probably for each of them. But so that's a lesser amount, but I'm just quickly adding that up, probably just over 5 million if it was those 5. And definitely, and it's going to be very subjective as far as nice to have or need to have, because some user groups or some spectators are going to tell you it's a must have and we should have done this years ago, and others would say, oh, I can go to the water park and do without the screen. So it's very difficult. But from a staff perspective, our events are very successful. We bring in way more than our fair share in terms of what we get over other facilities. Things like the water park in Alder Grove, people come from all over to go to those dive-ins, and the sip and dip. I don't know if anyone has experienced those, but they were selling out all summer long for the adults. It's not just kids that are going. So, we believe these are very important to the overall experience that people have at our facilities.
Okay, and is there a possibility that the revenues that are generated off these could be used as the source for a reserve fund?
Generally, all of our municipal facilities are subsidized to some degree.
Yeah.
So, increased revenue that might result from a new screen it probably will bring additional people into each of these different facilities. However, from our perspective, that would help just kind of reduce or meet that subsidy more so than a specific reserve fund. It'd be hard to identify, how much revenue is generated just because we've got a better video screen, I think, to go into a specific reserve. But that's certainly something council could consider if we wanted to put aside some money each year into a reserve.
And my last question is, of course, what prompted this presentation today, and thank you very much, Jason. I always find staff presentations very informative. Are there, and what prompted it was the viewing parties for the FIFA Cup, I guess.
Right.
Are we going to have to pay any kind of an expedited premium to get some of these things in place for a FIFA viewing party?
No premium financially. Our risk is more timeline, because if we want them in that window, before 2026, we would have to be moving fairly quickly, but it shouldn't cost us any more money per se. And yes, staff may have blurred a few lines, bringing that forward in the report together, because it's definitely not a requirement, but something definitely to consider. If we do want to do those FIFA viewing parties, then having a screen in the stadium and an upgraded screen, for example, in the Arena Bowl, would definitely help us towards that path.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So mine are a little more, I don't know, it's a little out there maybe, but would we or should we increase our user fees to pay for the new technologies? Because it looks like there's a ton of user groups that, would that be something that is considered going forward?
Staff haven't considered it, but definitely could be a discussion. In some of these instances, we will see increased revenue more than likely from having a video screen. And I'll just use the stadium, the outdoor, the soccer stadium, rugby stadium there as an example. Not having a video screen does restrict some of the events.
I see.
They won't come. So we'll have additional events that will come if we do have a video screen and a better audio system. So, and then the way that the events work, we break even or better on those different events. And so we will see some increased revenue, even just attendance at games. I mean, if any of you go to a Vancouver Giants or Vancouver Bandits game, I mean, probably more than 50% of the people are watching the video screen and seeing if they can get on it rather than watching the hockey game. So for youth in particular, it's a highlight to be in a contest and be on the screen. The more we can do with the technology, the more people will come, and we benefit because we get a percentage of those increased ticket sales. So user fees for rentals could be one way to look at it, but we would benefit probably either way.
My last question is related to more like sponsorship. Like sometimes when you go to like, if is there sponsorship opportunities to help pay for something like this that would help with the revenue or the expense?
Yeah, there is. Definitely where there are replacements, it's already being utilized for sponsorship in different ways. So that probably is just a trade-off in a ways. For sure with our youth focus groups and say the new arenas,
Yep.
That's something that when they host a fundraising tournament, for example, or a provincial event, to be able to tell their sponsors that you're going to get your ad up on the video screen as opposed to, there's going to be a sign on the concourse or something, definitely has value to them. But again, most of the time we let our users, like those youth organizations,
Right.
benefit.
We don't get that. We don't get that revenue coming
Usually
back to
not.
us. Okay.
We could suggest again, there's talk about a reserve fund possibly or something. We could look at different things, but when youth hockey holds their annual fundraiser, it's hard to say, hey, we want some of that. We try to just support them when they do those things.
Is our old equipment of value to anybody? Could we?
No.
Nobody wants it.
Only
Okay.
ourselves. As I mentioned with the four-sided and the Arena Bowl,
Yeah.
we think we can probably get enough pieces to last a couple more years that we can piece something together for ourselves, but I wouldn't feel good about trying to sell it to anybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just curious, how many different tournaments do we host in a calendar year over all the arenas and facilities?
Ooh, that would be a great question to know the answer to, and I'd love to actually come back to you with that information. I know when we quickly added up, Mike did the background work this morning, just when I asked him how many events are in the Arena Bowl, that's that 220 number. So just in the Arena Bowl, we had 220 different events that use the video screen. That doesn't, there's lots in there that doesn't necessarily. But if we expanded that to McLeod Park and the gymnasiums, and I don't know, can I get back to you on that? I'd love to actually come back because it's a big number. It's good.
All right. If I have to wait, that's fine.
Sorry, I'll just add, McLeod Park is a really good example. When you drive by there, between the Rams and minor football and track and field and the provincials we host and all that, it's pretty much every weekend. So, at the very least, I'd be confident telling you it's getting used, 100 times over the course of the year, but plus more in each facility.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
you.
Robert.
Yeah, I think this is timely and really important because as these new facilities that we're bringing in on stream do come into play, we're going to get a lot more requests for tournaments and stuff. I know some of the sports that I interact with, I can tell you that lacrosse, a very unique situation is going to evolve is that we could have 7 games going on at the same location at the same time up at LEC, which there's nowhere that can do that kind of stuff. So fully supportive of having the infrastructure in place that is going to make this. And I've been talking to the lacrosse and saying, in a year, I want to see a national tournament, and in 2 years, I want to see an international tournament, which I believe is very possible with this in the soccer stadium. So thanks for bringing this forward. I really think if you're going to have facilities like we have, you're going to have to do them properly as this looks like it's rolling out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Councillor Bailey. It's, as we move forward, it's important. It's funny how time goes by. It's quite a few years since the event center was put together, and it was a very, very important project and something that we're proud of in Langley. I guess a couple of quick questions. The event center was really not built for some large, I guess, venues or somebody who comes to town that used to go to, I guess, Rogers or something like that. Is there a middle ground or middle group that would come to something like the event center? I mean, I don't want to belittle or something, some performers, I'm sure something like, I don't know how big Sarah McLachlan is anymore, but something like that. If I know I'm not talking about Taylor Swift or something, but if you can answer that, if I may.
I'll work on Taylor for you. Yeah, we, from events, more like on the sports end of things, if you think about Hockey Canada, just as an example, we've hosted 2 different Hockey Canada events over the years, World Championships. But we're not big enough to do like the World Junior Championships that you see on Christmas between boxing and New Year's, right? Those go into NHL facilities, but there is a certain level of event that we can host. As far as concerts go, we have had some shows there over the years. Our biggest challenge with concerts and just events in general is the schedule. The schedule is so full of events and commitments and teams and events. When someone who's putting together a trip, they do it. They don't just book one concert. They put together a whole series of, say, 8 or 9 stops up the West Coast. They call, a year ahead of time and say, hey, we'd like to know what's available between January 10th and January 20th. And they're calling all the facilities up and down the coast and trying to put together a route. For us, generally, we might have one night, maybe. So it's really hard for concerts right now.
Yeah.
That's going to be relieved a little bit with the opening of the new arenas, because some of the commitments we have in the main arena of the event center will be able to move over potentially into the rink 1 of the new arenas, which will free up some possible dates. Or we might not move them, but we at least may have the ability to do that if we had the chance to bring in a concert. So staff have been looking, Mike and the staff there at the event center have been looking at a lot of family shows. So, everyone knows the Harlem Globetrotters is one example, and they're in Abbotsford coming up, but that would be something that would be a good fit. Or some of the family Disney on Ice shows. We did have skating for 2 or 3 years with Kurt Browning and Elvis Stoico and all those skaters, if you're familiar with them. So our biggest challenge is just dates. The success of the event center, it's not that.
Okay, so kind of, I think, it depends on the time of year, and maybe it's a recreational facility, I think, so it's used, you said 220. Now, I wanted to kind of little bit of history here. I'm sure you've already covered it, but I'm repeating myself, unfortunately. Is the fact that when we first had the event center, we weren't expecting the Giants. We had like a junior B or whatever it was. And then we also didn't have BC high school sports, whether it's basketball or volleyball. We had a little bit of Trinity, and can you just kind of let me and council know and the public know how many things we've added since the event center was first opened, if I may? I mean, it might be a long list, but the big ones, if I may.
It would be. I'll tag on with Councillor Rint's information when we come back with a lot of that. But yeah, generally we opened with BC Hockey League. It was the Langley Chiefs at the time, and then the Rivermen. So that one team, and we had the WLA Langley Thunder in the arena, and then Trinity Western basketball and volleyball. So essentially 4. I think we have 18 teams that call the event center home now, that are significant, you know, that draw spectators. So pretty significant growth to answer your question. The Vancouver Giants, obviously, Western Hockey League, different level. The Bandits of the CBL, I know a lot of council members attend those games, but they sold out, I think, 8 out of their 11 or 12 games this year. Huge success. VFC is growing. They're going to hopefully continue out in the stadium there. But I think I'm pretty confident saying we're the only municipality in Canada that has those three, like major junior hockey, professional basketball, and professional soccer for our Canadian leagues, on one site. There's one other community that has them spread out over multiple sites. But tremendous growth, to answer your question, Councillor Ferguson.
I think that's something to be proud of. We've come a long way. And from what I understand, I would have never ever thought when we opened the center, I just would have never thought that, is that now today, apparently the biggest draw has been basketball, if I may. Is that correct?
As far as scanned numbers, it's correct. The Bandits this year, I think 2 or 3 of their games set records for the most scanned into an event, a ticketed event like that. Some of the high school championships are a little bit different because people come or go over the day and they're spread out. So, but in terms of like a ticketed single event, yeah, the Bandits, and they can get more than the Giants because they have seating on the floor. So in terms of the total capacity, it's a little bit higher. But yeah, they had 3 games, I think, that broke the Giants record for a sellout crowd.
It's exciting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Winsley.
Great, thank you for that presentation, Mr. Winsley. I know that follows up from the report on the previous agenda as well. I think it's appropriate. 3:30 here, we'll call a 10-minute recess and return here at 3:40. Thanks. Bauer, we good, back underway? Great, so that presentation, I believe, may as well advance some motions for council to consider, which I have six. Ms. Bauer, if you could bring up the first one, please. Yeah, I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Ring. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bailey, go ahead.
Yeah, probably going to throw a wrench into things, but I just had something brought up to me. Have we looked into the possibility of any lease arrangements around any of these things rather than buy?
Through Council, to Council Bailey, through your worship. Not currently. We have though historically, and it's never proved to be favorable for us.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's just stop click. It's a new system, so just stop clicking and there we go. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that mix up. Mr. Winslade, I believe lease arrangements also just include an embedded interest rate that can be somewhat unfavorable.
Correct. Usually interest rate and usually a little bit of extra yearly profit as well. So it just generally doesn't work in our favor.
Yes, with that, any other discussion on this? Seeing none, Ms. Bauer, could you enable the start button? There we are. And that carries unanimously. Ms. Bauer, if you could please bring up the second one. Yep, this is to fund the Willoughby Stadium exterior video display. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on this one? Councillor Kunst.
So total contribution of 50,000 from applicable groups within 2026. Is that something we can count on every year?
Mr. Winslade, maybe you could handle that for me.
I don't want to put any words into the mover. And sorry, Councillor Bailey, Councillor Ferguson, I heard it's hard to hear up there, so I'll try to speak up. It's loud right here, so. I believe the idea there is that our user groups have been paying some rent for video displays and potentially sound systems. So I think the idea, and I'll look to Mayor Woodward to move this for confirmation, but that we would go to the groups and suggest that they could utilize those funds towards this contribution.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Martins, go ahead.
Sorry, I just was trying to quickly review the slides from the presentation. At the top of the screen here, it says LED video displays and audio systems. Does this include the audio system in this amount here?
It does not. No, it does not. That's coming up as the sixth motion.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, prior year's surplus, which prior year? 2024 or 2025?
Ms. Ruff, maybe you could handle that for me.
That would be the 2024 surplus.
And how much do we have in 2024 surplus that hasn't been spent?
6.8.
6.8 million?
Yes.
And now it will be taken down by another 1.25 million, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Great, seeing no discussion, I'll call the question on number 2. That carries unanimously. Ms. Bauer, you can bring up number 3. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Bailey. Questions or discussion? All right, we'll call the question on number 3. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Ms. Bauer, if you could bring up number 4. Right, so I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Rint. This one here is for the replacement Cloud Athletic Park video screen in addition to the permanent sound system at McLeod Athletic Park. It's missing a 0, Ms. Councillor. Ms. Bauer, can you add the 0 there, please? There we are. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I just had a general question. I mean, there's quite a number of these motions here. Was there any reason why council couldn't have received them as part of the council package?
They weren't. I hadn't fully prepared them until actually just now after the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So call the question on number 4. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Ms. Bauer, number what do we have? Number 5. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Bailey. This is to fund the Aldergrove Community Center exterior LED display as outlined in the presentation. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I had a question on this one. Being that this screen just went in 2018, and it's at more or less end of life right now, will the replacement screen be coming from a different vendor? Like, are we standardizing vendors for longer screen lives?
Councillor Richter, through your worship, we will go through a procurement process, so difficult to say. We're trying to, through an expression of interest, ensure that only qualified vendors are able to put in that submission to an RFP later on. So I can't predict what vendor might be selected. In this case, we're not recommending, you'll notice it's the lowest amount of money, it's only $200,000. We're recommending a screen that hopefully will be of good quality, but because of where it's being placed, the proximity to the pool and the environment it's going to be in, we're, as I mentioned, I think when you asked about lifespan, I think we're hoping probably that this one would just get us another 7 years or so and probably be there. So I don't think it's worth investing, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 in because of the amount of abuse it takes in its outdoor situation there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, call the question on number 5. That carries unanimously. Ms. Bauer, the last one, number 6. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Rint. This is to fund the Willoughby Stadium permanent sound system along with the video screen replacement with contribution from applicable groups as outlined in the presentation. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what's the balance now in capital projects reserve?
816,000.
Okay, thank you.
We'll call the question on number 6. That carries unanimously. Okay. Hopefully, Mr. Winsley, you'll get more than 10 years out of that video display. Get another 20 out of it, or 18 out of it again a second time.
We'll do our best.
Yeah. So appreciate council support for that one especially. Move on to item E1, B City Bat Friendly Community Certification. I'll move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Is there any discussion on E1? Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I really like this. I'm a gardener at heart, and I think this fits in with the agricultural background of the township. And I love sitting watching the bats in the backyard at night, and I also appreciate that they eat a lot of mosquitoes for me. So I really like this. It's a low-cost item, but I think it fits in really well with the image of Langley Township.
Yeah, I would concur with that, and I actually want to thank the two groups that are here from representing both of those communities for bringing that forward so that we could have that designation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the bringing it forward as well. And then also think that hopefully we can put this in the budget, but then also consider more in the future as that certification is complete. So I'll call the question on E1. That carries unanimously. Item E2, amendment to Council Policy 06022, Community Grant Policy Report. I'll move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Pratt, in regards to expanded funding for dry grad events at our local high schools. Is there any discussion on E2? Seeing none, call the question on E2. That carries unanimously. Item E4, capital request, 3-stream waste receptacles. Anybody wish to move that? Moved by Councillor Pratt, seconded by Councillor Bailey. Is there any discussion on E4? Seeing none, call the question on E4. We're on E4, Councillor Richter. E3 was deferred to October 20th. That carries unanimously. Item E5, capital request, total loss vehicle replacement. I'll move the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Rint. Is there any discussion on E5? Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'd like to know how much we received from ICBC. Did we get full replacement costs on this vehicle?
To your worship, Councillor Richter, it's estimated of approximately 165,000, and that would be deposited into the Public Works Equipment Reserve.
Okay, so I guess the question that I'm really asking are our vehicles insured for full replacement costs in the event of accidents?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, we go through a process in relation to our insurance policies, and then also dependent on what the incident itself occurs, whether it's a at-fault accident or not, and that is dependent on what coverage is then triggered.
Okay, so if this truck, this replacement truck is gonna cost 165. ICBC gave us that. It's going into the reserve. We now have to authorize payment for new truck from the reserve. Is that correct?
We are still waiting on the exact amount, but we do estimate it being 165, and we're just asking for council's authorization to essentially use those funds to replace a similar vehicle, which would be a medium-duty dump truck.
Okay, thank you.
Other discussion? I'll call the question on E5. That carries unanimously. Item E8, does anybody wish to move one of the two options? I'll move the first one then to refer the soil deposit application to the ALC, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Councillor Richter.
Did we remove 6 and 7?
Those were deferred to October 20th. Do you have a question about E8?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I've got my notes all in order here. So I just want to make sure, so we're talking 36,140 truckloads of fill. Has there been neighbor input on this, and how are we going to ensure that it's clean fill?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, there was a public notification process that was completed by regular mail with 60-day response period, and I believe that's included within the package itself. And in relation to the fill quality, we rely on the experts to ensure that there's testing done and therefore to ensure that it's clean fill as well.
Okay, so the motion that's been moved is that we're going to allow this, or that we're not going to refer it?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, I believe it's to process the application and refer it to the ALC Commission. And then in the event the approval is given by the Commission, then it will be granted. In the event it's not given approval, then the application won't proceed.
Okay, thank you. So we're referring it to the ALC. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just a clarification. I heard you say moving the first one, so only the very, very first, that paragraph, or?
The first recommendation before the or.
So there's two of them.
That's correct.
So you said the first recommendation, so are you saying only the very, that council direct staff to refer the soil deposit application for 27413 8th Avenue to the Agricultural Land Commission, period?
No, both paragraphs were moved.
Okay, thank you.
Seconded. Seeing no other discussion, I'll call a question on E8. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. E9, telecommunications tower application number 0016. I'll move that recommendation B. Second. That council objects, seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Is there any discussion on E9B? Seeing none, call a question on E9B. That carries unanimously. Bylaws for first and second reading, official community plan amendment, rezoning application number 100304, bylaw number 6167, 6168. I'll move it. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on F1? Seeing none, call a question on F1. That carries. Councillor Richter opposed. G1, bylaws for first, second, and third reading. 2026 permissive tax exemptions, bylaw number 6170. I'll move it. Seconded by Councillor Rent. Is there any discussion on G1? Seeing none, call a question on G1. That carries unanimously. Bylaws for final adoption, tax sale redemption date extension, bylaw number 6164. I'll move it. Seconded by Councillor Rent. Is there any discussion on I1? Seeing none, call a question on I1. That carries unanimously. Mayor and council report. Does anybody wish to make a report? Councillor Bailey, go ahead.
Yes, I will be submitting a report for my participation at the UBCM AGM, and with it, it'll detail which venues I went to and which I spoke to. I found it especially interesting in one dealing with emergency preparedness and there were three ministers, and I asked Minister Green if they have got anything planned in regards to emergency equipment in the future. And the reason I asked that is because the Senate down in the US just held a hearing that said that because of things like New York and Los Angeles and other things, that in the last couple of years, the price of emergency vehicles has over doubled and the waiting time has over quadrupled. And one of the reasons I also put it to it was to emphasize the fact that we made a really good move by buying those engines for the next 5 years, because had we not, the price now would possibly be double, and the waiting time could be very significant, if at all. The Senate, to watch this 2-hour Senate committee meeting on this was fascinating, to say the least, because this industry has become almost monopolized, and thank God that our fire leadership dove in and planned so many years ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I wanted to just sort of take the opportunity to give a shout out to two different events that I was fortunate enough to participate in. One being the Fort Langley International Ukulele Festival that kicked off last week. Was fortunate enough to be at the kickoff dinner, and want to give a huge shout out to Peter Luongo and the whole committee there that organized an absolutely fantastic event. Drew hundreds of people from around the world. Which is fantastic. And then the other one is to give a shout out to Vancouver FC, who play here out of Langley. They gave a good account of themselves in the Canadian Championship final against the Whitecaps. When they scored, it was as if Canada had won the World Cup. So kudos to the supporters, the Fanatics, for making the trip out. Kudos to the Whitecaps for the win. But it's going to be really exciting, because if the Whitecaps keep doing well, then we might be hosting international competitions at Willoughby Stadium. In a weird way, when we didn't win the finals, but we still get to host CONCACAF, so that'd be awesome. Congratulations to both the ukulele ensemble and the committee there, as well as VFC.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, lots happening in the last few weeks. UBCM was great, just to be able to participate in a bunch of different workshops, and also just to hear all the different resolutions from around the province is always very interesting and enlightening. I attended the Langley Hospital Gala, and as one of the volunteers, it was just really great to see just the community support and what our hospital is trying to, or our foundation is trying to do for our hospital. It just reinforces the absolute need for our residents to have a hospital that, in going forward, that we can be able to rely on in a way that is sustainable, as it's currently not able to do that. But that's a different story. I wanted to thank all the men and women who worked on 40th Avenue. And the fact that we were able to open that early was really wonderful. And I know that everyone in Murrayville and Brookswood are super excited about it. And just wanted to let council know I will have a notice of motion for next council meeting, just to maybe finish the sidewalks going on either side. So, and also we were talking about soccer. I just want to make a note that the women's soccer, the Rise, they'll be playing on October 16th, and they're CONCACAF as well. So I will be hopefully attending that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lots happening historically and otherwise. I'll start with the business of the UBCM, attending a number of conferences regarding anywhere from housing to engineering to taxes to how we deal with AI and the works. Also, we had obviously the Premier spoke, and the Leader of the Official Opposition and others who spoke as well. Guest speakers as well presented how we move forward and the challenges with the tariffs with our neighbors to the south. I actually got acknowledged for Indigenous presentation that worked with how we're moving forward with well, that's not me yet. I'm not there yet. Okay, can you put number 2 first? 2 first. Okay, and When Metro Vancouver, we actually received an award for the UBCM, and there is the chair and the CAO and the former chair and myself for asset management with the Metro Vancouver. So as much as you might hear in the news of Metro Vancouver, we're certainly doing a lot of things protecting our parks, protecting our assets and otherwise, and we're given an award for that. And I met with Metro Vancouver and two ministers on behalf of housing and how we produce housing in the region, how we looking after zoning, and also worked with met with another minister regarding the infrastructure and Iona treatment plant and our future development with the province. And they were very, very good meetings because it's important to move forward. These are all environmental issues and issues that are important to the region. So that was a very, very busy time. And now you can go to number one, and this is a historic moment for myself. I was acknowledged by the UBCM. First of all, the president, Chris Van Dalen, nominated me for 25 years of achievement and elected official. So that was my award there. So 25 years now, I've been officially a member of council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations on that, Councillor Ferguson. 25 years, quite the accomplishment. And certainly value that and appreciate the years of service that it takes to get an award like that. You look pretty good in that photo too, actually. So I don't know if you're wearing makeup there, but you're looking pretty good for 25 years of service. Thanks. Councillor Martins, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I too attended UBCM. I won't repeat things already said, but I would add it was great to see President Trish Mandeo when she gave her address. She made a pretty strong argument about lack of proper consultation with municipalities on proposed changes to the Heritage Conservation Act. And she made her point, and the provincial government has extended that consultation until November 14th. So really appreciate them responding and as quickly as they did to that point. Also, I had the opportunity, along with Councillor Kuntz, to attend a private event of women in politics. And the keynote speaker was Tamara Vrooman, the CEO of YVR. So that was a great event. And I think another piece of UBCM that cannot be understated is the networking with other municipalities, hearing from our colleagues around the province and some of their challenges and projects and suggestions. And we're always better when we talk to others and more and just hear of perhaps other ways of doing things. So that was a really great event. I was happy to be there. And then also mentioned was the Hospital Foundation Gala, my second year of volunteering with that event. The capital project this year was fundraising for the Child, Youth and Advocacy Center in Langley, which does have their grand opening at the end of this month. So it was great to see the community come together and just do a huge fundraising effort for that much needed facility. So those were some exciting times I wanted to mention. So thank you.
I have to apologize. I have a couple of thank yous that I want to include, and I left them out on the first round there. The UBCM AGM has a very different structure of speaking at plenary sessions. If the sponsor gets up and speaks in favor, and there is no con at the mic, there is no discussion allowed after that. So two very important resolutions came to the floor, and to try to make sure that we could expand on the importance, especially on the first responders resiliency program. I actually had Langley City Councillor Delaney Mack tried to get up and very diplomatically go to the con mic so that we could expand on further discussion and was ruled out of order. But I want to thank Councillor Mack for a good effort. The second time, it was better. It was the single staircase issue, which had to be expanded on because there was some people in the audience that wanted to vote against it. So I have to thank Councillor Ferguson for getting up at the con mic bravely and saying that he was con on that, and until he had more information, he was going to vote against it. But I am very pleased to say that after a few of us spoke in favor of suspension of that ridiculous code change, he changed his vote and came around and he voted with the pros. So thank you very much to the two councillors, one from Langley City and one from this council, supporting adequate discussion on very important issues.
I forgot one thing. I don't know how I forgot it. On the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, there was a flag that was flown at a flag raising. And I had a chance to talk to the Premier, Premier Eby, about a number of things regarding the Truth and Reconciliation. As you know, I'm on a treaty table, and he's very, very sensitive and understanding of the issues facing, and he will be addressing many of the issues as we move forward. But I did want to tell Council I had a chance to talk to the Premier. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm going to echo the appreciation for getting 40th open. Very much for that. Thank you very much again for that. I know that's a long, complicated project requiring lots of senior government approvals that held it up for a long time. I was also at BC Beach Stadium and was delightfully surprised at what a fabulous, respectable showing Vancouver FC presented against the Vancouver Whitecaps, and so did Vancouver win. Yes, Vancouver absolutely won. So that was a fabulous game, and it was great to be there to support, and it was great to get a chance to be there with the Fanatics, not in some suite. So I really very much appreciated that invite. One thing that I was also at UBCM for a short period, but that's been well covered. I think one thing that wasn't mentioned that we were all at, I think a lot of us were there, was the Truth and Reconciliation last week. And really important, and was really pleased to attend again this year and see rising numbers every year of people throughout Langley attending that to listen, learn, and engage on such an important topic. So again, I very much appreciate all the organizers that put that event together here at the Arboretum for Langley. And again, very much appreciated that again this year. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, just about UBCM. I know that it's a wonderful opportunity at UBCM to actually meet with different members of the government, ministers and premier, I guess. Was Township of Langley able to get any time with any of the ministers for a meeting?
I don't believe that the Township of Langley formally requested any minister meetings this year at UBCM.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, in answer to that, yes, some of us did meet with ministers. I met with 3 ministers, and it was very productive, especially when speaking to Minister Green about the purchases of emergency equipment.
Yeah, and there were many conversations at a staff level as well.
With the Minister of Environment and the Minister of Housing and Parks. And as you know, Township of Langley, we're members of Metro, and I was representing both Metro and Township of Langley and listening to the presentations, because many of the very things that we talked about affect Langley. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction. So the option to request a meeting in advance, identify a topic, is like speed dating, and you're there for 5 to 10 minutes, and there's a row about people out the door. And experiencing that a couple of years ago, I think for a municipality of our size, requesting minister meetings is a regular course of business. They happen all the time. I had one last month. So, I think UBCM, that structure is designed more for smaller municipalities and may not be as fruitful for the larger ones. And I think the conversations that occur in the hallway, I met with many mayors and ran into them there for the day and a half I was there. Lots of fruitful discussions going on with Surrey, Abbotsford, Maple Ridge, Metro Vancouver, and others throughout the region that Councillor Ferguson and I see support at the regional table all the time.
Yes.
And just saw it again on Monday. So great relationships throughout the region, especially with the City of Surrey, City of Delta, City of Maple Ridge, City of Abbotsford, City of Port Coquitlam, and on the list goes. All right, so Metro.
Yeah, this morning, after a lovely 2-hour drive in traffic up to North Vancouver, I had the opportunity to go up to one of the dams and the water filtration plant, and I'll tell you, the words impressive don't really meet when they're supplying 1 billion liters of water to this area a day. You can see how much work goes into it, and when you hear people sitting there saying that they're going to shut down Metro like they did yesterday, you realize how ridiculous that is when you see the complexity of one of the world's largest water filtration plant. It was the world's largest until New York copied our Metro water filtration plant, and it is the largest in Canada. And after watching and listening how they did it, they actually did a back flush on one of the filters, which was incredible. But thanks to Metro for arranging that show of the water filtration plant. I had to get to this meeting. I had to miss tomorrow they're opening one of the new tunnels for water supply, and I had to miss that to get here. And also the dredging. I brought that up at the Flood Resiliency Committee, and seeing that it is becoming more of a focus on getting Bedford Channel and surrounding areas dredged, it is definitely rising to the top in importance. So I'm going to be pursuing that again a little more vigorously next month and next meeting with the climate action.
And that's good. I mean, I have something else to say, but I mean, if we can get Metro, their attention and be on their radar for that flooding, for that dredging. I know that we talk about it at the parks as well, Parks Committee. We had a parks tour down at Witch and Marsh there a couple of weeks ago as well, presented, and it's going to be many acres of parks there, and they're going to have a soft opening soon, but it was an excellent presentation by the park staff, and the weather was really good too, because it didn't rain. It was a sunny day, and we enjoyed ourselves. It's going to be a beautiful park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's up in Coquitlam area.
All right, does anybody have any questions about items M1 through 5? Councillor Martins.
Thank you. Not a question, but I just want to acknowledge M4 Smith School site building permit update. I want to express my appreciation to staff on providing the updated memo. And I note that on September 26th, the foundation permits were issued for the Smith Middle and High School. So thank you very much for getting that across the line there. And I appreciate the continued work by our staff with the school district to complete the outstanding requirements. So thank you very much for the good work happening there.
Yeah, I had a question about each of them. I'll start with number 4 because Councillor Martins has already brought it up. I just want to make sure that with M4 that the building of the schools, which, I mean, the letter that came to council in the last meeting from the school board was that they want the schools opened in September of 2027. So just based on the information that's in the memo that we got, will the school board still be on track for having those schools opened in 2027? So September of 2027.
Isn't that a question for the Board of Education?
Well, I was just wondering to make sure that they, when they come to when they come to staff looking to get the building permits issued, so that they can get on with the business of the building of the schools, that it's not going to be a problem, that they're not going to be delayed.
Yeah, so there would, no point would they be delayed. They'd have to satisfy requirements to achieve a building permit like any other proponent. Council has already weighed in and fast-tracked that, which was happening sort of much anyway. But Mr. Cooner, do you want to add to that? It's really up to the school district to build the school.
Yes, Your Worship, that's a correct characterization of it as outlined in the memo. There's still outstanding requirements, including final approvals of site servicing and site access. Once those are satisfied, they'd be in a position to have a building permit issued, but then it would be in the proponent's hand with respect to construction timelines and et cetera, which it would be with the proponent, not the township.
Yeah, I kind of gathered that. I just want to make sure that we're not going to delay their permits to a point where they will be affected in opening those schools. That's all I was asking. Okay, I'm sure we'll get further updates down the road. I would like to go to M1 on the tree removal, and this was the delegation that had been made to us last week by Ms. True. It says here, and I note on page 2, that the fine of $13,700 consists of a fine for $7,700 for actually removing the trees, and then a cash in lieu payment of $6,000 for replacement trees. Just a question through to staff. If the Trues agree to replace the trees that were cut down, can that $6,000 be waived, which would reduce their financial burden from 13,700 to 7,700?
Yeah, Mr. Cooner, maybe you could address that. I think that if it's required by bylaw, council could come up with an alternative funding source to come up with the difference out.
To Your Worship and to Councillor Richter, the item is that the 6,000 would be seeking would be for the tree replacement and environmental enhancement program. So that would be at a larger scale as well. But we can review this item more in depth and get back to council on it specifically and see if those the proponent themselves can, depending if the replacement trees are actually viable in their property, if that's an option for them after reviewing the bylaw.
Okay. Do you need a motion to that effect? Because I would like to.
Yeah, I would also like to have that approved by council before that work continues. So if you wish to make a motion, Councilor Richter, go ahead.
Yes, I wish to make a motion that staff explore the $6,000 cost, reducing that cost for replacement trees by speaking with the True family and.
I don't know why that's happening again and again. Go ahead, Councilor Richter.
Speaking with the True family and determining if the replacement trees could be planted directly on their property to replace the trees that were removed. And then that fee can be eliminated.
All right, so I think Ms. Bauer can capture that in a motion with the rest of it being content, and we can certainly have that read back to us. Is there a seconder to that? Seconded by Councilor Kunst. Do you wish to speak to it further, Councilor Richter?
No, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Thank you.
Councilor Bailey, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm fully understanding this, but I do have initially some reservations about this because I want to make sure that the proper trees are going to be put in place and the proper process is going to be followed. What can we do from ours if we're going to look at that option? what can we do to ensure that proper trees and proper procedures, planting procedures are going to be followed? Because, you know, if you just sit there and say, you know, they just have to plant some trees, that could be that could go wrong in so many different ways.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, thank you. Didn't know if there was an answer to that, but I guess the question would be, we've had individuals come to us in the past asking for tree violation fees to be waived. It might be an unfair question at this point, but generally speaking, have we waived fees previously for those coming forward?
Dear Worship to Councillor Pratt, good question. So historically, there's been delegations with respect to tree cutting. Delegates have expressed their concerns or sought penalties to be reduced or tree replacements to serve as a substitute for penalties, to my recollection. However, there had been no action from council on those items. Staff had provided a memo. The issue that we face is that the penalties based on established bylaw provisions, and there's technically no mechanism in the bylaw for any reduction for the tree replacement or to serve, or tree replacements to serve as substitute for penalties as well. So it's an item we can explore, but more than likely it would require a bylaw amendment to actually probably explore that item or actually have that as a substitute.
Right, and I suppose just kind of going along this train of thought, where if the requirement was that any individual was to only be required to replace the trees on their property that they have either erroneously or somebody else has erroneously cut down, would somebody be eligible to use the township's tree voucher program to buy potentially trees to replace the trees they've cut down, and therefore the township is paying people to be cutting down trees and then replacing them? Like, you see where I'm sort of going with this? It's if we have a tree voucher program that's funded by fines for those folks who are cutting down trees, whether on purpose or not, and then they can turn around and use that program to be paying for the trees they cut down to be replaced. I do have some reservations about that. So if the motion can be read back before we vote on it, just so that I know if we're actually approving the fine being waived or if we're simply moving forward with a potential discussion about it, that would be fantastic when we come to a vote. I know that there potentially are other speakers.
Yeah, there aren't. So, Ms. Bauer, could we have that read back for council?
The motion currently reads, staff explore reducing the $6,000 cost for replacement trees by speaking with the True family and determining if the replacement trees could be planted on their property.
Okay, so no other speakers. The challenge here for me is a couple things. One is if you want to change the bylaw that results in this outcome, then we change the bylaw for everyone and not for one delegate. That's what we've done a couple times already this term. Happy to look at it again if that's the direction, but it's interesting to say someone removes trees, they end up here at the council table with a bylaw situation, and then we're just gonna say, oh, okay, so you brought it to us, so it's fine. What about the people that maybe went through the process and paid the fine? What about them? And so I think that this is, again, it's interesting the way this works. I remember last term, couldn't get through a single development in Willoughby without having to account how many trees have been removed. And here we are with a motion to not be concerned about trees. So I obviously don't support this. And I think if we're going to change the bylaw, we change the bylaw and try to maybe improve it again if that's the direction council wants to go. But these one-offs, I don't support. They're just fundamentally unfair. So with that, I'll call the question on the motion. That is defeated with Councillor Bailey, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Martins, Councillor Pratt. That was pretty fast. There was a few others there that were opposed. I think that the 5 seconds may not be long enough, Ms. Bauer. There we are, Councillor Rent and Mayor Woodward opposed. So Councillor Richter, you had, I think, other points to make. Go ahead.
Yes. I was just wondering, with regards to M2, it says here, staff are following the job action implications with Canada Post related to the mail out of voter cards for the upcoming election. They were due to be mailed. Obviously, they haven't been. But I'm just wondering, have the election Act requirements been met by not mailing out voter cards? Or would the lack of voter cards mean that the results of the election can be contested? And if the results of the by-election can be contested, then what exactly is that going to mean?
Your worship, to Councillor Richter, the voter cards themselves are not legally required. Therefore, the by-election will proceed. However, staff have, including myself, have also enhanced some of the measures we are taking to ensure that the public is aware of the by-election, and increasing the scheduled advertising to enhance any voter uptake.
Yeah, okay. It does say that voter turnout is expected to be impacted with the absence of voter cards. Do we have any idea how much of an impact? Like, I just don't want the results of the election contested after the fact.
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, it's hard to determine what impact it would have due to the fact that voter cards are unable to be mailed.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to the employment lands, I was just wondering if we were going to get a staff presentation on this. And if we're not, I'd like to request a staff presentation on it.
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, the next steps would be essentially for staff to incorporate the recommended adjustments in the memo and bring a draft reference plan and present it to council via report to council. So technically speaking, it would not be a presentation.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'd like to make a motion that we, in addition to a report, also get a staff presentation on it.
I'll second that.
That's seconded by Councillor Martins. Yeah. Do you wish to speak to it further, Councillor Richter?
Yeah, I find these staff presentations very useful, and I appreciated Mr. Winslade's presentation earlier today, and I think in the context of this particular part of the township, the employment lands on Fraser Highway, that a staff presentation would be equally as valuable.
Thank you. Yeah, I support this motion. There's been several iterations of the plan and changes, and I have attended I guess the open houses with talked to a lot of different interested parties there, and I think it would be helpful to be able to have what this next one looks like presented to us, and just, I think, for clarity and available conversation back and forth with staff as we work through it, I think would be really beneficial at this point, because there's been a lot of changes along the way. So I think it'd be prudent for council to do a bit of a deeper dive in a presentation format. Thank you.
Will this be the final iteration?
I believe whether it's final or not would be up to council once we have the report.
But going forward, this will probably be the final one before it
Don't
goes
believe
to
staff
public.
have any direction to make any more versions, but staff can confirm that.
To your worship, to Councillor Kuntz, the concept 5 would be the concept would present to council as a Fraser Employment Lands reference plan, and it would be then for council to either adopt the reference plan, give further direction to staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I can always appreciate the desire to have things presented. I think we've had many reports that we don't get presentations for. So I think it's premature. I think we get the report, and if we read the report and then we want a presentation, we would go from there. I think it's premature to suppose that the report doesn't answer questions. So from that, I'll call a question on the request for a presentation. And that's defeated with Councillor Bailey, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Pratt, Councillor Rent, and Mayor Woodward opposed. Councillor Richter, did you have anything?
No, that's all I have on items for information.
Move on to O2, expansion of first priority snow and ice removal. I'll move the motion, seconded by Councillor Bailey. This came to me from actually one site that was having trouble with staff getting to the location to take care of very vulnerable residents. So that's where it came from. And I think we can include this and get this priority one expanded a little bit in a very restrictive way for facilities that maybe access their underground via a local road and staff couldn't get there, were getting to work late, and this was really affecting the welfare of some very vulnerable members of our community. Councillor Bailey, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for this. I strongly support this. My mother was in the seniors facility for a significant amount of time. And, you know, if we can do some special measures to make sure that these people, when they do get out, either in their wheelchairs, walkers, or unassisted, that they're as safe as can be. So I strongly support this kind of safety measure.
Great, seeing no other speakers, I'll call the question on O2. That carries unanimously. Item O3, Redwoods Golf Course Reserve and Council Policy. I'll move it. Seconded by Councillor Pratt, and I think it speaks for itself. Is there any questions or discussion on O3? Councillor Ferguson.
I think
Councillor Ferguson, go ahead.
We're talking about the Redwoods Golf Course Reserve and Council Policy. It's interesting to note after all these years we've owned the Redwoods Golf Course, and the Hope family came to us a number of years ago, and rather than putting it right to market, they came to the township and wanted to leave a legacy there, and they did. And now this is something for the public to know of what a valuable asset we have here. And I think this recommendation looks at a number of different ways of exploring how it can be used and how it could be expanded. But it's a very, very important asset for the township of Langley, and we should be proud that we do own this golf course and reserve. Thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question on O3. That carries unanimously. Item O4, graphic image delivery bylaw updates. I'll move it. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bailey. Same thing. I think this speaks for itself. Is there any discussion on O4? Councillor Richter.
Yeah. I guess what I'm wondering about is what the fine print is here, and is this even within township's legal jurisdiction as it's dealing with mail?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, since it's a report to council, staff will be reviewing that with the legal counsel, whether there's any potential jurisdictional or even constitutional issues in relation to mail being a federal jurisdiction.
Okay, glad to hear that. Thank you. The other question that I have is, this is the first I've heard of this problem. Is there any way staff could get a briefing on what this problem actually is?
To your worship, we would be exploring it, and if there's any questions that require to be answered from the intent of the motion, would ask the mover themselves.
Okay. Is there a complaint that's come in on this?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's come in, but it did arise from a recent incident in Walnut Grove related to some individuals distributing rather graphic imagery on a flyer door to door anonymously. And a number of residents did register their complaints online about it, and I participated in those discussions.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll call the question on 4, but before I do, I just wanted to also mention, Mr. Cooner, and for council, New Westminster has some of these things already in place. So with that, I'll call the question on 04. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Move on to 05, Township of Langley Tenant Relocation Council Policy. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Bailey. Is there any discussion? Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I mean, why are we looking at this? Are we planning to evict tenants?
I don't believe we're planning to evict tenants that I know of, but this would be because the Township of Langley does not currently have a tenant relocation and council policy, and many other municipalities in the region do.
All right, so if we don't have one, I know we do have tenants. Have we gotten, or will we be getting any input from them?
Yeah, just to clarify, this isn't for someone in a single-family home or other property. This is intended to protect tenants, vulnerable tenants that may be within a multifamily rental building. It's not intended for township properties where maybe we have one tenant in a home.
Well, that's not clear from the wording of this motion.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do about that. If your tenant relocation council policies throughout the region are specific to multifamily rental developments.
Okay, but will the policy ultimately be used for tenants that we have in parks or in current vacant or township-owned single-family homes?
No, that's not the intent.
Okay, thank you.
That call the question on 05. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Okay, so I'm just, sorry. Okay, so 06, 2025 Transportation Mobility Strategy Next Steps. I'll move it. Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on 06? Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why we would want this prior to additional public input or consultation.
Yeah, it came out of some discussions with staff at the workshop that you were not present for, so it's hard to give that, but there were a number of questions that were risen, and I think it's appropriate for council to weigh in before it proceeds to public consultation, potentially giving the impression that council supports the contents of the strategy.
Okay, thank you.
That, call the question on 06. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Is there any other business? Councillor Kunst.
Yeah, it has to do with the BC Conservation Act, the update that has now been extended. So I was actually in the webinar in the summer where they offered that and got to hear from different mayors, different CAOs from around the province of how this legislation could potentially impact development and in their communities, especially the smaller communities. Are we going to be submitting any comments or to do with this legislation?
Your worship, to Councillor Kunst, we'll internally review the item and see if there's an opportunity to submit any comments or whether staff have already been in discussion with the BC conservation officers or different provincial agencies.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've seen some very nice videos on social media lately, which looked to me like they were done by drones. So I'm just wondering if they were done by a drone, is it a township drone? And if it's a township drone, where do the costs for these videos end up in the budget?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, if there's a reference with respect to the Township of Langley corporate communication videos, then these videos are done through our communications department. The communication department does have their own budget under corporate administration, and those cost items would be as a part of the budget process and allocated there through that process.
Okay, so the drone costs all fall under the corporate communication budget?
That is correct. It'd be a part of the budget process. So corporate administration department, or that's a division, and the specific department would be the communications.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other business? Or does anybody have any items for closed? No, Ms. Bauer, I've got 2 legal items. Going to motion to resolve into closed as amended, moved by Councillor Rent, seconded by Councillor Bailey. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries unanimously. Get a motion to terminate, moved by Councillor Rent, seconded by Councillor Bailey. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you.